Chapter 747. Open the door. Wang Yuechuan thought for a moment, then calmly shouted towards the door of the morgue. Don't even think about it. You killed someone. I will never open the door. The old policeman became more nervous when he heard Wang Yuechuan's words. I can't bear the responsibility if something happens. You just need to open the door. You won't be involved. Wang Yuechuan said indifferently, You should know my background. This time I have a special task. This is part of the task. Task? What task? To kill someone? The old policeman shook his head. Oh, how did you get in? Why didn't I know about it? You're so sneaky. You must have done something shady. And this person is a foreigner. Open the door. If you don't open the door, you can't bear the responsibility if something happens. Wang Yuechuan shouted coldly. His voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. When the old policeman heard this, his heart skipped a beat, and he was so scared that he almost moved a chair to block the door. I can't make the decision. I'm sorry. Since the old policeman had been guarding this kind of position that didn't have much room for promotion, he had long cultivated a profound skill of self-preservation. No matter what, he wouldn't take on this kind of matter himself. I'll report it. You! Wang Yuechuan gritted his teeth. At this moment, no matter how calm he usually was, he almost lost his sense of propriety. When it came to this kind of thing, even if he had 1,000 reasons, he could not explain it clearly. Moreover, he could not casually tell this matter to an ordinary old policeman who guarded the morgue. Even if he told them, they would only regard him as a lunatic. Sir Ma, why are you here? Suddenly, Wang Yuechuan heard the old policeman outside the door shouting with a trace of surprise. Wang Yuechuan's heart sank after hearing that. If it was this old policeman, he would have the ability to deal with him and try his best to think of a way. But if it was Ma Haud, the situation was naturally different. For some reason, there was a smell of gunpowder between him and Sir Ma in this station from the beginning. This Ma Haud was obviously uncomfortable with him in all kinds of ways, so how could he easily let him go at this time? This guy wasn't good at anything else, but his hatred of evil was real. Wang Yuechuan had nothing to say about this. I was about to get off work, so I just came to take a look. What's the matter? Why are you so flustered? Ma Haud's voice sounded unhurriedly. Obviously, he didn't know what was going on here. Sir Ma really did not know what happened here. In all honesty, tonight he planned to have a candlelight dinner with Mrs. Ma and pursue the passion of his youth with the help of his second child's happy occasion. If Lin Feng had not said that he saw Wang Yuechuan sneaking into the morgue with some people, he would not have bothered to come to such an unlucky place. He did not know if coming to such a place would bring bad luck, and if it would affect his dinner with his wife later. Just as he was thinking about this, the old policeman guarding the morgue said something that made Officer Ma's jaw almost drop to the ground. Sir Ma. Inside there was a murder. That Officer Wang from the Provincial Bureau killed someone inside. He killed a foreigner. Oh, you mean old Wang killed someone? Ma Haud nodded. It's not a big deal. Wait, what did you say? Looking at Ma Haud's horrible appearance, the old policeman suddenly hurriedly said, Wang Yuechuan killed someone in the morgue. I saw it with my own eyes. There is also video evidence. F***ck. What's going on? Ma Haud moved his mouth and looked at the door of the morgue that was blocked by a chair in disbelief. It's really... As soon as he heard the news, Lin Feng, who quickly went to the surveillance screen to check, also turned back in shock at this time. Sir Ma, look, in the surveillance video, Wang Yuechuan, who was sitting on the ground, suddenly stood up, then threw something on the ground. Then, he said a few words to the frightened foreigner and suddenly killed. Clearly, completely, and without any exaggeration, he killed someone. Wang Yuechuan, you really killed someone? Although he had seen it clearly in the video, Ma Haud still subconsciously looked at the door and asked in a deep voice. He really did not have a good impression of this guy, but it was undeniable that this guy's work was also commendable. Instinctively, Ma Hao did not believe that this guy would do such a thing as killing someone. Taking a step back, this guy looked very arrogant, but he really was the kind of person who could blow up the heavens. Moreover, he had a very bright future. If his head wasn't caught by a door, why would he kill people and destroy his own future? However, in the face of Ma Hao's question, there was no response in the morgue. If it weren't for Wang Yuechuan's appearance still being captured in the surveillance video at this time and Professor Trevor's body on the ground, Ma Hao'd even thought that there was no one inside. I will turn myself in. Just as the strange atmosphere was spreading here, suddenly, Ma Hao'd and Lin Feng heard Wang Yuechuan say such a sentence slowly. This guy really killed someone? Ma Hao'd and Lin Feng looked at each other and saw the shock and confusion in each other's eyes. The coin kept spinning between his hands. In the last seat on the second floor of the city's sightseeing bus, the young man with a depressed look was leaning against the window, looking at the billboards that passed by in front of him. Because it was Christmas Eve, there were very few people sitting on the sightseeing bus at this time. They were in twos and threes, but they were in pairs. However, this did not mean that the surroundings were very quiet. On the contrary, it was very noisy, and the road was like flowing water. Lu Zixing felt a little cold. The slight chill began to spread from the soles of his feet, but in general, his body and bones were not too uncomfortable. In fact, living in this era, even beggars or tramps on the road did not feel cold easily because there was no shortage of clothes. But he felt that his clothes were not enough to cover his body. In general, Lu Zixing did not resist the foreign festival of Christmas Eve. After all, many years ago, his father sent him abroad to study. During that period of time, he spent several different Christmas Eve. Compared with foreign countries, the domestic atmosphere was also good, but it was obviously still a lot worse. It was more of a festival for young people. But this was a festival that should belong to the family. Suddenly, he flicked the coin that was spinning between his two fingers up. The coin that rose and finally fell into his palm, and then was covered by another palm. Heads or tails? Lu Zixing did not open it to see, but his face gradually darkened. Suddenly, he slowly took his palm away and glanced at the direction of the coin in his palm. He just glanced at it, and then his head leaned against the window again. The coin began to spin between his fingers again. 37 times. 37 times in a row. Even if he guessed heads, he could not get the real heads of the coin. His luck could be said to be terrible. In fact, there was a traffic jam in front, which seemed to be the cause of a vehicle collision in front. Lu Zixing slowly sighed, only to feel that his head was a little heavy. The wound in his ear kept coming, making him feel very uncomfortable. Everything felt terrible, especially after yesterday's massacre in the gambling hall and turning danger into safety. Lu Zixing felt as if he had the help of God. Now that he was so unlucky, Lu Zixing had a feeling of decline after reaching the pinnacle. He began to toss the coin for the 38th time again, and silently said heads in his heart. After gently opening his palm, it was tails. It was always unsatisfactory. The 39th time, when the coin was thrown, it made a buzzing sound, but it was immediately covered by the horns of the surrounding vehicles. Heads. It was still tails. Lu Zixing stood up expressionlessly and chose to get off at this place. The driver did not stop him. In fact, several people on the first floor of the bus had already gotten off earlier. Driver, how long is it to Baiyun Road South? Before getting off, Lu Zixing turned around and asked. Walk there? It's not far, about 10 minutes. The driver responded casually. There was a famous tea house in Baiyun Road South, which was Lu Zixing's destination this time. As the driver said, it was only a 10-minute journey, and Lu Zixing soon came to the front of the tea house. Saying that it was a little famous meant that it was a little famous in the circle of the rich. In fact, this tea house was quite famous in the whole process. Although the consumption was very expensive, on such a special night, many young men were still willing to be ruthless. Lu Zixing entered the door, and a waiter who was walking towards him was about to ask, but he shook his head and refused. Then, he walked straight in one direction. This was not the kind of place where the rules were really strict and deliberately showed off. There was no rule that one must wear formal clothes to enter. Lu Zixing walked past the tables and finally came to a seat in the corner. A woman was sitting here early. She was wearing sunglasses and ordered a cup of coffee. From time to time, she looked at the time on her phone. She seemed to be waiting for someone, and gradually became anxious, until Lu Zixing arrived. The woman clearly saw Lu Zixing walking all the way from a distance, and she quickly took off her sunglasses. Lu Zixing finally came in front of her. He moved his mouth slightly, hesitated for a moment and said, "Sorry, there's a traffic jam. Take a seat first," the woman hurriedly said in a low voice. After Lu Zixing sat down, she quickly said, "What's the matter? I don't have much time. I lied to Mom that I have something to do at home, so I came out. I have to go back quickly." Lu Zixing looked at the woman in front of him, his wife. He was a little bitter. He didn't expect this woman to come out to see him, but he didn't expect that after a phone call, she would agree to come out. At this time, there were thousands of words to say. Lu Zixing could only smile bitterly in the end. "Thank you for coming out to see me," I thought. The woman's expression was quite complicated. Her eyes moved slightly, and she struggled to move away from Lu Zixing's slightly hot gaze. In the end, she sighed, "After all, we are husband and wife. I don't want to be too ruthless, child." "Very good, but recently, I have a little cough at night. I often can't sleep. Mom said that this is childhood whooping cough, and it needs to be treated slowly." Lu Zixing smiled and said, "I was not in good health when I was a child. This child should be like me, but you will get used to it after coughing. When you grow up, you will get better. You need to exercise more." "I don't see you do much exercise usually." The woman smiled. It was a natural and calm smile, but such a smile quickly dimmed. Lu Zixing clearly felt that there were still feelings between him and his wife. He suddenly understood that even if he lost the qualification to have family affection, his wife was more than family affection to him. Perhaps love was still there, but what he had done in the past disappointed it, so it quietly closed the door and hid. "Let's not talk about anything else. You asked me out today, for what? Is Mom's health okay?" Lu Zixing thought for a while and suddenly asked. "She's okay, but she hasn't been able to eat much recently. The company's affairs are also busy." The woman shook her head. "I used to think that Mom was a young lady who didn't know anything. I didn't expect her to regain control of the company. Her means are as strong as she can be. It's not like the same person. The company in the beginning was built by Mom and my dad." Lu Zixing shook his head. "She is actually a strong woman. It was only after I was born that she changed a little. However, I always let her down." The woman suddenly looked at Lu Zixing and gritted her teeth. "Zixing, your ears." Lu Zixing pulled his hat down a little and shook his head. "Mom is still soft-hearted." The woman lowered her voice. "Maybe she is really angry with you this time, so she wants to teach you a lesson. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its own child, not to mention that she is your biological mother. After a while, when Mom calms down, why don't you let me?" She had never seen such a down-and-out Lu Zixing. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but this man who had been sleeping beside her pillow seemed to have aged 10 years after not seeing him for a few days. "And okay." Lu Zixing nodded gently. If this could be the case, it would naturally be for the best. However, only he knew that this was absolutely impossible. How could the things that he had sold still be there? He just felt that his wife still had some residual feelings for him, and he didn't want to let her be too disappointed and painful. Perhaps in his wife's mind, there would be a day when he would be forgiven by Mrs. Lu, turn over a new leaf, return to the Lu family, and live a happy life from then on. Probably every woman had such a wish, right? On this special day, Even if he knew that such a wish would not come true, it was better not to say it out loud. Let it be gently, gently accompanied. By the way, put this into the company's account. Lu Zixing slowly pushed out a check to his wife. The amount on the check made his wife's expression change. She stared at her husband in disbelief, as if she was trying her best to guess where he got such a huge amount of wealth from. Don't worry. Although it's not a legitimate source, it won't be investigated. Lu Zixing said softly, you just have to ask the name of the account. The Four Seasons Group is not a small company. Take this money as compensation for my losses over the years. With this fund, I believe the company will have better development. I'll leave first. Lu Zixing got up and left. His wife put her palm on the check and looked at Lu Zixing's back as he left. She wanted to ask him to stay several times, but when Lu Zixing's back was about to disappear in front of the tea house, she suddenly stood up. Zixing. Lu Zixing's figure paused, and he finally pushed the door open and left. He walked out of the tea house and looked up on the street. He heard that the air in winter was cleaner, but he couldn't see many stars. Even the Big Dipper was only faintly visible. He laughed at himself and took out the coin from his pocket. With a flick of his thumb, the spinning coin fell into his arm. He said in his heart, heads. However, when he opened his palm, it was still tails. Chapter 748. Lang Yong. Greetings, young master. Lang Wu. Greetings, young master. The faces of the two Wolf Clan warriors were still a little pale, but the moment Purple Star appeared, the two Wolf Clan warriors immediately stood up and bowed. They had been taught since they were young to be loyal to the greedy Wolf Clan's Purple Star young master for life and to devote their lives to her. Thank you for your hard work. Purple Star looked at the two greedy Wolf Clan warriors and was naturally filled with emotion. She came out of the greedy Wolf Clan from the plateau, and after many twists and turns, only these two were left. It could be said that she was at a disadvantage. The two greedy Wolf Clan warriors were telling Purple Star what happened after the battle at the river bank that day. After hearing that Purple Star's young master was seriously injured, they couldn't help blaming themselves. Little brother Xuefeng, I feel like you have saved our clan's young master. Lang Yong looked at the uneasy Xuefeng standing behind Purple Star at this time and showed a grateful smile. In the future, you will be my Lang Yong's brother. If you are in trouble, I will definitely come to your rescue. If you don't do anything harmful to the greedy Wolf Clan, I will take care of everything in this world for you. On the one hand, he was really grateful to this little monster for saving their young master. Such a great kindness should naturally be repaid by the greedy Wolf Clan. On the other hand, Lang Yong looked at Xuefeng and saw that he was just a child among monsters. Such a child couldn't cause any big trouble, so he could naturally exaggerate without any pressure. Xuefeng looked at Lang Yong a little unprepared. Can he really take care of everything? When he faced these greedy Wolf Clan members, his mood was a little complicated. He had already opened the inheritance of the greedy Wolf Star. Although it was a huge thing that took a long time to absorb, from some of the knowledge that had been sorted out, Xuefeng was clear about the origin of the greedy Wolf Clan and the greedy Wolf Star. The greedy Wolf Clan was the guardian clan of the greedy Wolf Star. The Purple Star Young Master was the name of the greedy Wolf Clan's young master. He had the highest status in the greedy Wolf Clan, but this was also within the greedy Wolf Clan. If Purple Star was the emperor of the Ravenous Wolf Clan, then the Ravenous Wolf Star was the faith of the Ravenous Wolf Clan, and the Purple Star Young Master was the sacrifice of every generation of the Ravenous Wolf Star. Xuefeng even had an idea that as long as he proved that he was the contemporary greedy Wolf Star, whether it was Purple Star, Wolf Brave, Wolf Marshal, or the others, their attitude towards him would most likely undergo a 180-degree change. In the ancient memory inheritance of the greedy Wolf Star, there was such a memory. In the prosperous era of the Demon Clan, hundreds of thousands of warriors of the greedy Wolf Clan knelt beside the greedy Wolf Star and made a gesture of submission. Every generation of the greedy Wolf Star looked down on all living things. Although they were not as good as Kelowna Shinryu, they were not far off. The Greedy Wolf Star was still the belief of the Greedy Wolf clan. It was like a totem. If the Ravenous Wolf Star waved its hand, the Ravenous Wolf clan would even dare to gallop across the world. Even if they had to fight Kelowna Shinryu, they would not be the slightest bit timid. In the inherited memory of the Greedy Wolf Star, there was a record of a certain generation of greedy wolves pointing their swords at the Kelowna Shinryu of the same generation. A group of guys who were not afraid of anything, a group of guys who valued glory more than their lives. Zhu Feng suddenly remembered the joke-like agreement with Mo Xiaofei before. If one day, he and Mo Xiaofei could represent the positions of the two clans respectively, the Greedy Wolf clan was one of the core bloodlines of the ancient demon clan. As long as Zhu Feng revealed his identity as the Greedy Wolf Star, he would have the opportunity to enter the pyramid of Kelowna Demon Clan. Little brother Zhu Feng, little brother Zhu Feng. Lang Yong's voice sounded. What are you doing? Zhu Feng was taken aback. He had just woken up from his boundless mental state, looking like he had forgotten himself. Seeing this, Lang Yong and Lang Wu couldn't help but smile. This little monster who lived a tough life was probably a little scared by such a promise. He was too excited to think about it, right? Lang Yong immediately coughed softly and said, "Little brother Zhu Feng, regarding the previous promise, we are naturally serious. But I also hope that little brother will not act tyrannically. If you do something that angers the heavens, I, Lang Yong, will be the first to not spare you." Zhu Feng laughed awkwardly, subconsciously suppressing the idea of proving that he was the Greedy Wolf Star. "Well, Zhu Feng is still just a child," Madame Purple Star said indifferently, then instructed, "Lang Yong, Lang Wu, you two continue to recuperate here. I will personally meet this so-called Lord Xiaolong." After coming to this pet hospital, Zixing learned from Lang Yong that Kelowna Shinryu was not there and was replaced by a little Lord Long. This little Lord Long seems to have a deep relationship with the Kelowna Dragon God, and she is even suspected to be the illegitimate daughter of Lord Long. Zixing did not dare to neglect such a big matter. At this time, she had already sorted out her mood and was ready to meet him. "If there is nothing else, you are free to move around," Zixing said, then opened the door and walked out, but after taking a step, she remembered the promise Lang Yong made to Zhu Feng. Zixing thought for a while, then suddenly took off a small jade pendant from her body. "Take this jade pendant. If you have difficulties in the future, you can take it to the plateau. My Greedy Wolf clan will naturally shelter you." No. Zhu Feng originally wanted to refuse, but when he remembered that Purple Star was the kind of person who kept her word, he immediately accepted it. It's not that he covets the so-called protection of the Greedy Wolf clan, but this jade pendant seems to be something that Zixing carries with her. Zixing didn't know Zhu Feng's thoughts. After tidying up her clothes slightly, she slowly walked toward an office in the direction indicated by Lang Yong. Watching Zixing leave, Zhu Feng thought of what she just said. He sighed again in his heart. It seems that in the eyes of Zixing, I am just a child. If I prove that I am the Greedy Wolf Star, Zixing will naturally have a completely different attitude towards me, right? But that's not what I want. At the same time, in an office, a little girl, who was making a cup of coffee and lighting a cigarette, was lying on the table like a cripple. She squinted her eyes and looked at the picture on the surveillance video. Watching the conversation between the guy from the Greedy Wolf clan and Zhu Feng, she covered her stomach and laughed. This group of idiots, if they know that Zhu Feng is the contemporary Greedy Wolf Star, their facial expressions must be very interesting, right? But looking at Zixing, who was slowly walking toward the office on the screen, the little girl couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Those two werewolf warriors were clearly brawny but simple-minded creatures. It was very easy to fool them. But the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, Zixing, was not so easy to fool. The sound of knocking on the door sounded soon after. Long Shirua frowned and poked the bead left by Chichi Kamaya on the table with her finger. In the end, she dispelled the idea of using the bead. In order to see the young master of the greedy wolf clan, it was obviously not worth it to let her bleed once. "Excuse me, is little Lord Long here?" Facing the slightly respectful voice of Zixing outside the door, Long Shirua cleared her throat, then quickly put away the ashtray on the table, and said indifferently, "Come in. Come in." Old Lu didn't even raise his head. He was still looking at the documents on the table seriously. Don't think that being the leader of a police station is very easy. It's just that he was not the kind of person who held a high position but did nothing. It was common for him to work overtime until 10 o'clock in the evening every day. The bitterness of a leader was not necessarily known by the people below. "I heard that tonight is Christmas Eve. Should I go back early to accompany my son?" Old Lu had a son when he was old, and he cherished his son very much. Just as he had this thought, Old Lu saw Ma Howd walking in with a gloomy face. Why is it this big trouble? Didn't he ask for leave and get off work early to accompany his wife? However, he saw Ma Howd sitting down at this time, staring at him without saying a word. He looked as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed dozens of dead flies. Old Lu didn't know how long it had been since he saw Ma Howd like this. His heart suddenly thumped. I'm getting off work soon." Old Lu quickly stood up and packed the documents. "If there's anything, we can talk about it tomorrow." "Oh no, wait until next week. I'm not free tomorrow, I have to go to a meeting." "Sit down." Ma Howd slapped the table. "Let's talk. Don't be agitated. I just bought this table last month. It's very expensive." Old Lu looked at Ma Howd in fear and said weakly, F***ck. Ma Howd was speechless. Looking at this guy's timid character, Ma Howd wanted to beat him up. Even so, if it wasn't for this timid guy taking care of many things for him, Ma Howd knew that he wouldn't be able to live so well. He sighed and looked at Old Lu, saying seriously, "Old Lu, I don't think we can get off work today." "Why, aren't you going to have dinner with my sister?" Ma Howd looked up and said, "Wang Yuechuan killed someone." "So what? There are people killing people every day, what's the big deal?" "Wait, who did you say?" "Wang Yuechuan." Ma Howd said word by word. "Murder! In the morgue room. I've already got him under control." Old Lu was so scared that he sat down on the chair. The time in the East was always earlier than that in the West. In the eastern countries, when it was already night time, in the West, some areas might still be in the daytime. On a quiet road in a foreign country, Tu Jiaqing, wearing simple and plain clothes, was riding a bicycle slowly. She was listening to the music on her mobile phone and humming a simple melody. There were many things on the basket in front of the bicycle. Not long after, the bicycle stopped in front of a small but very unique manor. In front of the manor, there was a small sign, Angel Welfare Home. There were many homeless or abandoned children in this manor. About half a year ago, this manor was still empty, but now it had become the home of many homeless children. This was arranged by Tu Jiaqing and her sister Tu Jit. They just wanted to do something, maybe it was more for charity, or maybe this kind of life was actually much better than before. Tu Jiaqing carried the things on the bicycle basket, then came to the mailbox in front of the manor. She took out the things in the mailbox and walked into the manor. In the courtyard outside the manor, a group of children were sitting around a woman. The woman was holding a wooden guitar and singing something softly. "Sister Jiaqing." The children found Tu Jiaqing coming back at once and quickly gathered around her, because they knew that Tu Jiaqing went out today to buy delicious food for the Christmas dinner tonight. "Come on, distribute these candies first. But you have to follow the rules, don't take too much, got it?" Tu Jiaqing smiled happily, putting down the box of candies and letting the children divide among themselves. Then she started to organize today's harvest. "What did you buy?" Tu Jia smiled, carrying the guitar to her sister's side. "I bought a lot of good things." Tu Jiaqing didn't turn her head. "The boss of the grocery store in town also gave us a bottle of pine nut wine, we can drink some tonight." Her sister smiled. She had never thought of such a life before, but she had never thought that such a life could be so fulfilling. Hey, what's this? Tujia saw a small palm-sized box among a pile of sundries. It was tied with a ribbon. It was a gift box. Whose gift is it? Really? Tu Jiaqing looked at it in surprise. It should be from the mailbox? I don't know who sent it. Tu Jia smiled. Maybe it's someone in town. Let's open it and see. Because of this welfare house, many people in town were very friendly to this foreign sister, and often sent her something. It was Christmas today, so it was not unimaginable to receive a gift. Her sister Tu Jiaqing opened the box slowly. Her sister asked curiously, "What's this?" "Sister, it's a CD." Tu Jiaqing blinked her eyes, her face full of doubts. She took the CD out of the box and raised it slowly, asking confusedly, "But, sister, have you released this album before?" Tu Jiaqing was naturally familiar with each of her sister's albums that had been released, whether it was digital or CD. She had never seen the cover of this CD, so it was natural for her to be curious. Tu Jia took it with a frown and looked at it carefully. "Why is this CD strange? It was recorded before I left that place. The post-production wasn't done yet and it wasn't published yet." "Sister, can I listen to it?" Tu Jiaqing suddenly asked. Tu Jia nodded. The two sisters hurriedly walked into the manor and took out the CD player. Putting in the CD player, a gentle melody accompanied by an almost perfect female voice slowly rang out in the empty house. "Sister, this song is... You wrote it, have you forgotten?" Tu Jia smiled. "It's the first song you wrote on your website. I used it to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect that it couldn't be published. It's a pity." "It's not a pity," Tu Jiaqing said softly. "It's enough that you can sing it." "Silly child." Unknowingly, the children in the house came to the sisters' side one by one, listening to the singing of the CD player quietly. "Sister, do you think this gift is shu?" Tu Jia put her finger on her lips gently, motioning them not to speak. Chapter 749. Old Ma and Old Lu smoked one cigarette after another in the office. Even if the ventilator in the office was turned on, it still wouldn't be enough. At this time, Old Lu suddenly inserted the half-smoked cigarette into the ashtray full of cigarette butts, stared at Ma Howd and said, "Did he really say that?" Ma Howd nodded and said, "This guy is very stubborn. He just said that he had a mission." At that time, he had no choice but to deal with the foreign old man. "I have a mission, and I have no choice." Old Lu frowned. "This foreign old man can't be a foreign spy, right? What mission does Wang Yuechuan have?" "I know that I can come to you." Ma Howd rolled his eyes. "I think this guy doesn't want to disclose. He is so stubborn and not afraid. I don't know if he really has a special mission. Wang Yuechuan is from the province. Although we can't control him, he killed people in our territory." Old Lu shook his head and suddenly asked, "Doesn't this guy have any other request? Make a phone call or something?" "No, he doesn't." Ma Howd shook his head and said, "As soon as he came back, I immediately locked him up and searched all his belongings, then locked him up." "What did he find?" Old Lu curiously asked. "And did you find out the identity of the foreign old man?" "I found the old man's ID card. I asked Lin Feng to check it. There should be news soon." Ma Howd quickly said, "As for the guy, I didn't find anything. It's just a wallet, keys, mobile phone, etc., and a strange book. In addition to these, there is only a pile of stones, which Lin Feng said were crystals." "A pile of crystals? Book? What book?" "I don't know. It should be a foreign language." Sir Ma shrugged. With his education, he could only recognize 26 English letters in foreign languages. As he spoke, Ma Howd suddenly said, "By the way, I also watched the video. This kid and the foreign old man seem to be fiddling with something in the morgue. I don't know what they were drawing on the ground, but they sat there for a long time, like some kind of ritual." "Ceremony?" Old Lu opened his mouth wide. "It's a little strange, like a cult?" Is this foreign old man some kind of terrorist? Old Lou's fingers trembled. It wasn't that he didn't think so. Not long ago in this city, probably just before the Golden Week, there was an extremely cruel serial murder case in the city's gymnasium. The murderer was caught and escaped halfway. At that time, it was classified as a terrorist attack. He didn't know if these two cases were related. I can't say for sure. We have too little information and can't use it at all. I say, Old Lou, do you think you should call the person in the province and ask? Ma Howd asked seriously. Old Lou looked at Ma Howd with some embarrassment. He was the kind of person who was about to retire to the second line. He believed in the principle of non-interference and just wanted to land safely. He didn't want to encounter any terrible things, but this thing, well, you go out first. I'll make a phone call and report it. Let's see. Old Lou sighed. He knew that with Ma Howd's character, he couldn't avoid it no matter what. Unexpectedly, when Ma Howd walked out of Old Lou's office, Lin Feng hurriedly ran over and said in a panic, Sir Ma, Wang Yuechuan absconded. What? Ma Howd opened his eyes wide. You let him go? F***ck. Sir Ma, you can't wrong people. Then tell me, how did he escape from the detention center? I saw him being locked up with my own eyes. Ma Howd suddenly said angrily. Lin Feng said helplessly, I don't know. It's just that the policeman on guard fainted outside the cabin door. I went to the surveillance room to take a look. The people inside also fainted, and the surveillance records were also destroyed. What about the murder part? Ma Howd hurriedly asked. That part was also erased. Lin Feng was quite helpless. Seeing that Ma Howd was about to go crazy, he hurriedly said, but I was afraid that something would happen, so I secretly memorized it. Ma Howd scratched his head hard. He couldn't have done so much alone. Is there someone else helping him? But it shouldn't be. Didn't he come here alone? With that, Ma Howd directly pushed open the door of Old Lou's office with a gloomy face, only to see Old Lou frowning and looking at him. As soon as he put down the phone, Old Lou said, the management said to immediately escort Wang Yuechuan to the police station. If he resisted, they allowed to kill him. But he escaped. Quickly looking behind him, Wang Yuechuan immediately adjusted his walking posture and tried to keep himself calm. He walked into a taxi unhurriedly and told the driver a place. Then he closed his eyes, leaned against the back seat, and adjusted his breathing. He almost ran out of the police station at the speed of a 100-meter sprint. No wonder, Chow, you could calmly take things from the evidence room and leave without finding anything. This was the mysterious magic of the Book of the Dead. Wang Yuechuan's breathing had slowly calmed down, and he began to think about everything that had happened in the morgue. In fact, choosing to surrender was not the best way to get out of trouble he had come up with. Using the power of magic to hypnotize Ma Howd and others on the spot, destroy everything, and even make Ma Howd and others temporarily forget what had happened. With his current ability, it was not impossible. The reason for all this was, he received a phone call at that time. Wang Yuechuan did not know why this phone call would be so coincidental at this time, but the name on the caller ID made Wang Yuechuan not refuse to answer. Chief, what's the matter? I happen to have some trouble now. If possible, please make it short. Wang Yuechuan knew in his heart that the matter of the Book of the Dead could not be explained clearly in a short time, and now was not the best time to explain it. Trouble? What trouble? Do you need my help? I can solve it. Wang Yuechuan quickly gave an answer. At this time, he intended to follow the original plan of hypnosis, leaving and returning to the provincial bureau to report this matter. That's good. The voice on the other end of the phone was a little low and hurried. Wang Yuechuan, listen, after you solve the current trouble, I want you to stop all the work at hand immediately. I have an important task for you to complete. What task? Wang Yuechuan frowned, unexpectedly at this critical moment. But he did not suspect anything, just felt puzzled. Only he and the person on the phone knew this phone call, and it was the only channel for them to secretly contact each other, and he was very familiar with this voice. Where are you now? The city you were assigned to last time? I'm still there. Well, go to a place called this as soon as possible, to meet a person. I'll let this person wait for you for 2 days. What you have to do next is to cooperate with him unconditionally. The code for your connection is... Wang Yuechuan suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the scenery around him. Although there were many things in his heart that he could not figure out, he decided to go to the appointed place first and see the person who would make the connection. He had rarely heard the chief speak in such an urgent tone, unless something serious had happened. Wang Yuechuan gently patted the Book of the Dead that he had taken back and now hid in his clothes. This book was of great importance. If he did not see the chief in person, he would not even dare to expose it. This kind of thing could only be proven when he personally verified it in front of that person. He also knew that the people above were not completely united. That person had many enemies as well. Sir, how long will it take to reach the Lonling residence? Wang Yuechuan asked the driver in a low voice. It's hard to say, boss. The driver did not turn his head. Look at this time, it's rush hour. Besides, tonight is Christmas Eve, and there are many people coming out to play. By the way, boss, where are you going to play? I'm a little tired, call me when you arrive. Wang Yuechuan casually dismissed him. Basically, Luoqiu did not think that he would be in such a situation, like some of the male protagonists in the popular novels on the internet, following behind a few women who could be defined as beautiful women, and then carrying large and small things from generation to generation. The women's trophies. To be exact, Subeditor Ren's trophies were the majority, and then 3 of them were Lizi's trophies, snacks. In order to reduce the burden of her master, even if Subeditor Ren patted her chest and promised to buy whatever she wanted on the premise that she would pay for it, she still did not choose anything. Why was this? Obviously, it was just a meal, but before the meal it became shopping in the mall? Don't blame me. I didn't know that there were so many people eating there. After getting a number, I had to queue for 2 hours. While saying this, Ren Xiling was in a jewelry store, letting the sales lady take out several hand gestures to choose. Lizi seemed to have no interest in these things. She was in front of a shop selling milk tea, waiting for her fruit buffet. As for the servant girl, she was casually browsing the other jewelry store cabinets. You don't seem to have the habit of wearing jewelry? Luoqiu glanced at the various bags on the ground. If he bought it again, he estimated that he would have to wear it around his neck. This was a method that Boss Luo was very resistant to, whether mentally or physically. I don't have it. Ren Xiling pouted and said, Who said that I bought it for myself? I bought it for you, Yi. By the way, does this necklace look good? Don't look at me like a piece of wood. Can't you give me some advice? Give it to her? Luoqiu was a bit surprised. Ren Xiling rolled her eyes and said angrily, Such a good future daughter-in-law, what's wrong with me giving her something? Do you have an opinion? It's so hard to choose. I feel that these are not suitable. How long could he accompany her? Luoqiu quietly looked at Ren Xiling's troubled look. Soon, he would leave the city and wouldn't come back for a while. In the name of studying abroad. Luoqiu didn't know what kind of changes the club would bring to this city if it continued to exist, but one thing was certain, excluding those ordinary human guests, there would be more and more non-human guests in the future. Too many incredible things happened in the same place. Maybe one day it would attract the attention of the world. Although these things could be easily suppressed by Elder Luoqiu, it was not a big deal. But Ren Xiling's soul was too beautiful. An incomparably dazzling rainbow of colors, a color that resembled colored glass. Got it! Ren Xiling's eyes suddenly brightened at this time. She stood up directly and pulled Yu Yi over. Under the servant girl's curious gaze, she picked up a silver-white ring from the jewelry box, and then put it on Yu Ye's slender middle finger with a smile. Just right. That's it. Yu Yi glanced at her master, only to see Luocio nodding slightly and taking it. Of course, such an action didn't escape the eyes of sub-editor Ren. Are you his girlfriend or a worker? Do you need to care about this guy's face when taking my things? Ren Xiling hummed. Let me tell you, this guy is too bad. I have to help you teach him a lesson. I'll cherish this gift. Seeing this, Miss Maid took back her finger and held it in front of her chest, saying softly. These words made sub-editor Ren's anger disappear. She directly rolled her eyes, but picked up another ring from the jewelry box, and directly grabbed Luocio's hand and put it on. Don't blame me for not giving you Christmas gifts as an elder. Ren Xiling raised her nose and said. Luocio looked at the silver-white ring on his finger, suddenly a little dazed. Ren Xiling at this time grabbed Yu Ye's hand and Luocio's hand, putting them together, and said softly, Good things come in pairs, rings come in pairs. Don't forget. In the winter night, this pair of hands that grabbed Yu Ye's and mine were a little warm. Where did you copy it? Boss Luo took a deep breath and resolutely spoiled the scene. Madame Ren was stunned and moved her lips, resisting the impulse to beat this guy, and directly pushed them out. Go 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 go! Go and see if it's our turn to eat. I'll pay the bill here. Miss Ren is really a good person. Miss Maid's fingers slowly rubbed on the ring, walking beside the boss. Luocio just answered softly, and at the same time stopped, turning to look at Yu Yi and said softly, Let's leave in a few days. Chapter 750. It was not until she really saw this so-called Little Lord Long that Zixing was sure that Lang Wu and Lang Yong were not lying. She looked like a little human girl, but at the same time, she exuded the aura of a dragon. It was not a messy dragon, but the extremely pure aura of Shinryu. As the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, Zixing's senses were naturally much sharper than Lang Wu and Lang Yong. It's just that she didn't quite believe Lang Wu's argument that this Little Lord Long might be the illegitimate child of Kelowna Shinryu. Compared to this speculation, Zixing had more things to think about. In the ancient inheritance of the Greedy Wolf clan, there were records about Kelowna Shinryu. In the long history of the Greedy Wolf clan, the current Greedy Wolf star was once a genius of the Greedy Wolf clan, Kelowna Shinryu. It could be said that compared to other monster clans, the Greedy Wolf clan had more understanding of Kelowna Shinryu. Kelowna Shinryu did not simply refer to the Dragon clan. It was actually different from the so-called ancient Dragon clan. To be precise, Kelowna Shinryu referred to Kelowna's dragon vein. A huge dragon vein that could suppress Kelowna's luck for thousands of years. Kelowna Shinryu was born from this dragon vein, and then it chose a carrier to walk in the human world. It was the guardian of Kelowna. Is this Little Lord Long the next generation of Shinryu? If this is the case, then is there something wrong with the current Lord Dragon King? This Little Lord Long claims to be the successor of Lord Dragon King. Judging from his aura, his status is probably much higher than Mo Xiaofei. While Purple Star was sizing up Little Lord Long was naturally sizing up this Greedy Wolf clan's Purple Star young master. Long Shiruo felt that she was someone who had seen the big picture. Even if all the Grand Demon Kings were here, she would be able to handle them. Why would she be afraid of this young master of the Greedy Wolf tribe who had not yet fully matured? However, the look in this little girl's eyes made Long Shiruo feel a little uncomfortable, as if her secret had been seen through. Long Shiruo said indifferently, "You are the Ravenous Wolf clan's Purple Star young master." Zixing nodded. Before she truly figured out the identity of this Little Lord Long, she planned to maintain as much respect for Kelowna's faith as possible. Zixing heard from Lang Yong that Little Lord Long is the successor of Lord Long Jun, successor. Long Shiruo's heart moved. In fact, before finding a way to solve the problem of her current appearance, Long Shiruo had been thinking about how to explain her existence. Mo Xiaofei was ordered by her not to disclose it, and only Chi-Chi Kamaya knew about it. That old turtle knew the seriousness of the matter, so he naturally wouldn't say much. During this time, If she didn't appear as a disciple of Chichikamaya, she would appear as a suspected descendant of the Xianyuan royal family. Although she had deceived them, if she had to face more monster circles in the future, or even the powerful people of this country, such an identity was not the way to go. Who knew that after becoming like this, she still couldn't recover after such a long time? This Shinryu of Kelowna was also in despair. What could she do? Did she have to confront that profiteer again? If she did it again, what would she do if she directly degenerated into a baby girl? It turns out to be the Saintess of Shinryu. Zixing's expression tightened, and she immediately bowed respectfully. Greedy Wolf Zixing greets Your Highness Saintess Long. If the successor of Shinryu was a man, it would be the Saintess Long. If it was a woman, it would naturally be the Saintess. This was a legend passed down since ancient times. There's no need for pleasantries. Long Shirua was too lazy to care about her current identity. It was fine as long as she felt that she could intimidate people. I heard from your two subordinates that your team came out of the plateau and was attacked by unknown people on the way to Mount Tai's conferred god altar. They even stole the secret treasure of the Greedy Wolf clan. After that, you were injured and your whereabouts are unknown. I'm ashamed to say this. Zixing sighed and blamed herself. It's also Zixing's fault for underestimating the enemy. That's why I ended up in this situation. I've made a fool of myself in front of Saintess Long. Long Shirua shook her head. Young Master Zixing has inherited the power of the Greedy Wolf, and is also the priest of the Greedy Wolf clan. Her strength is equivalent to the Demon King among the great beasts. Although you are young, you have the help of the Greedy Wolf clan's warriors. In the end, you let the opponent leave calmly. It can only be said that the opponent's strength is frightening. Do you know the origin of the opponent? I only know that it's a woman with white hair. Zixing frowned and said, She uses a very strange sword. But it doesn't look like the kind of weapon refined by the cultivators of Kelowna. As for this mysterious woman, I feel that her bone age is not old. I'm afraid that she is not more than 30 years old. Long Shirua lowered her head and pondered for a while. Suddenly, she looked at Zixing and said, Do you remember the appearance of the opponent? Zixing nodded, then quickly glanced at the desk in the office and said directly, Saintess Long, can I borrow a pen and paper? Use it. Long Shirua nodded, but suddenly remembered Lang Yong's painting ability, and a strange expression appeared on her face. This young Master Zixing, no matter what, should be right? Zixing took out a piece of A4 paper, took a pencil, and began to sketch carefully. Looking at Zixing's professional appearance, Long Shirua was slightly relieved. This appearance, she does have the demeanor of a master. This young Master Zixing's speech and temperament are the best of the best. Such a girl can be regarded as an anomaly among the Greedy Wolf clan. It's really rare that that group of brave and fierce guys can train such an outstanding young master. I see that there is a trace of Buddha nature in you. Have you ever practiced Buddhism? Long Shirua suddenly asked. Zixing slowly said, I once studied Buddhism with the previous living Buddha for some time at the Holy Palace in Lesau on the plateau. Long Shirua nodded and said coldly, Greedy Wolf is the inheritance of the young master of Zixing. If every young master of Zixing cannot meet the current Greedy Wolf star, they will eventually be swallowed by the Greedy Wolf's hostility, and they will not have a good ending. It seems that after countless years of lessons, the Greedy Wolf clan has learned to be smart. They know to let you learn Buddhism to wash away the Greedy Wolf's hostility from the inside. And it seems that the results are not bad. Long Shirua did not feel the hostility from the Greedy Wolf from Zixing, and the power of the Greedy Wolf was quite pure. Although it was now dormant, it was probably because of the injury earlier, but it was enough to make Long Shirua think highly of this generation's young master of Zixing. Saintess Long is too kind, Zixing said indifferently, then stopped writing and handed the A4 paper to Long Shirua. Long Shirua took a look, and her expression suddenly became a little strange. Wedge-like hair, sausage-like lips, Although the nose is drawn very well, why are the eyes also so big? Is this an alien or an oriental person? F***ck. This girl is also the same kind of person, she is clearly a soul painter of this generation. Saintess Long, have you seen this person? Zixing looked at her with a dignified expression. After all, it was related to the whereabouts of the clan's secret treasure. Long Shirua folded the A4 paper and said slowly, I don't have any impression, but I will help you pay attention to the whereabouts of this person. As long as she is still in Kelowna, she can escape detection. Of course, Zixing did not think that Saintess Long was exaggerating. If this Saintess Long released the news of looking for a person in the name of the dragon god of Kelowna, there would naturally be countless monsters willing to inquire about it, so as to owe a favor to the Shinryu. Even a certain institution in this country would give this face and use the country's ability to find the person. In that case, Zixing will thank Saintess Long first. Zixing bowed her head. If I can find the secret treasure in the future, Zixing will definitely visit again to thank Saintess Long. Saintess Long was not the Shinryu of Kelowna. The gratitude of the entire Greedy Wolf clan was very precious. Let's find it first. Long Shirua waved her hand. Now that you and your men are injured, stay in the hospital for treatment during this period of time. I will prepare some medicine for you, it will be good for you. Thank you, Saintess Long. Zixing nodded. She also had plans to recuperate again. In the hospital of the dragon god of Kelowna, it was naturally the safest place. Who would dare to invade? If there is nothing else, go and rest. Long Shirua shook her head. You have reunited with your men. Naturally you have a lot to say. Zixing suddenly asked, Saintess Long, Zixing has something to tell the dragon god. I don't know if she won't be back for a while. Long Shirua said casually, she went abroad to pick herbs. If you have anything else, it's the same to tell me. If it's really important, I can use a secret method to contact her. Zixing thought for a while, then told her about the bizarre encounter in the cinema and everything that happened in Yen Wuyue's world. Long Shirua frowned and remained silent. When she heard about the world fragment, her breathing seemed to be slightly faster, and it was difficult to keep calm. However, she did not interrupt Zixing's narration, but listened very carefully word by word. The Lonling residence was not a hotel, but a high-end lounge that sold red wine. After the taxi stopped, Wang Yuechuan paid directly and walked into the Lonling residence with his head lowered. According to the instructions of the person who called him, Wang Yuechuan quickly came to one of the private rooms in the Lonling residence. He knocked on the door and at the same time tensed his body so that he could deal with any sudden situation at any time. Come in, the door is not locked. It was a slightly hoarse and low man's voice. Wang Yuechuan pushed the door open and entered. He saw an ordinary-looking man sitting on the sofa in the middle of the wine tasting room. He was the kind of man who could be easily ignored in a crowd. He was shaking the wine glass in his hand. Wang Yuechuan frowned. This man seemed to be in his 30s. Although he looked quite ordinary, he was not simple. Wang Yuechuan suddenly whispered a secret signal. The man quickly responded, then smiled and said, That person said that you just happened to run into some trouble. I thought that I would have to wait here for at least a day. I didn't expect that you would be able to come so quickly. That was beyond my expectations. It happened and… Wang Yuechuan shook his head, then said seriously, What's your name? Sit down first. The man pointed to a single sofa next to him and began to pour red wine into an empty glass. The expenses here can be reimbursed. It's a waste if we don't drink. I won't drink during the mission. Wang Yuechuan sat down, but refused the other party's invitation. What if I say that this is also the content of the mission? The man smiled faintly again. I remember that you should unconditionally cooperate with me from the moment you see me. Wang Yuechuan stared at the other party, but he couldn't see anything in the other party's eyes. He didn't say a word, directly picked up the glass, and drank the red wine in the glass in one gulp. I like this kind of heroism. The man smiled. Let me introduce myself. My name is 18. 18? Wang Yuechuan was stunned. Such a name really made him feel like he was being played. 18 shrugged and said, Is it strange? A name is just a code. And 18 is a code. Code, to use numbers as code, that is to say, there is no need for a name? Wang Yuechuan thought in his heart. Generally, if a number is used as a code, the origin is worth guessing. It may be a secret department, or a special profession, Wang Yuechuan. Wang Yuechuan directly called out his name. In this way, the two sides knew each other. 18 saluted Wang Yuechuan from afar and said happily, Nice to meet you, Wang Yuechuan. For our upcoming cooperation, let me toast you. Wang Yuechuan frowned, but he still took another sip. This time, it was a small sip. The aftereffect of the red wine was very strong. Although he had a good alcohol tolerance, he would never let the alcohol in his body overdose and affect his sobriety. Even if the so-called overdose only made his body slightly hot, he would not allow it. What is the content of the mission? Wang Yuechuan asked directly. 18 put down the wineglass. While playing with her fingers, she asked softly, Don't worry about this. You will know later. But before we start, I want to ask you a few questions. I hope you can answer me seriously. Is this a test? This operation is getting more and more mysterious. Wang Yuechuan became more and more puzzled in his heart. Ask away, Wang Yuechuan said naturally. The first question. 18 stared into Wang Yuechuan's eyes. If I ask you to give up your identity as a police officer and live in the darkness forever from now on, unable to see the light, would you be willing? Wang Yuechuan's eyebrows twitched. Such a question seemed to point to something. He suddenly raised his head and stared at 18. My mission this time is to be an undercover? Wang Yuechuan had carried out a lot of missions along the way. He once dealt with a group of drug dealers alone, acted as a guard for important people, and experienced life and death several times. But when it came to being an undercover, it was the first time. You answer me first, 18 said calmly. Wang Yuechuan took a deep breath and slowly replied, I obey the organization's arrangement. The second question. 18 had no intention of stopping and asked again, When the organization behind you gives up on you, when the country gives up on you, no longer recognizes you, and even intends to kill you, what will you do? What is my mission? Wang Yuechuan's voice suddenly sank. The first question asked by this guy with the code name 18 already made Wang Yuechuan feel that this operation was a bit strange, and the second question made Wang Yuechuan feel the seriousness of the matter from the side. You still need to answer my question first. 18 leaned back and moved her body. Of course, you can choose not to answer, but I will treat it as you taking the initiative to give up this thing. I will ask that person to find me a suitable one. In fact, I don't need someone who is not capable enough. Wang Yuechuan's pupils contracted hard, but he forced himself to calm down, but at the same time, he stared at 18. Even if the organization gives up on me, the country also gives up on me, or even wants to kill me, I will complete the mission. Very good. 18 showed a happy smile, suddenly stood up, and then walked to the window of the room. At the same time, she waved at Wang Yuechuan, motioning him to come over. Wang Yuechuan walked to the window and looked out. At this time, 18 joked, Do you see the traffic policeman downstairs who is writing a ticket? Wang Yuechuan nodded. 18 sneered, You go and kill him. What? 18 said indifferently, The third question is also the last question. Will you kill this traffic policeman? At the same time, this is also the beginning of your mission. Chapter 751. Echo, I swear. I volunteer to be a police officer. I promise to be loyal to the motherland, to the people, and to the law, to obey orders and commands, to observe discipline and keep secrets, to enforce the law impartially and honestly, to fulfill my duties and not be afraid of sacrifice, to serve the people wholeheartedly. I am willing to dedicate myself to the noble cause of public security and work hard to fulfill my oath." After a while, Wang Yuechuan withdrew his gaze from the window and then cast his eyes on the man who claimed to be 18 again. 18 said calmly, "It seems that you already have an answer, right?" Wang Yuechuan said, "I believe that no matter what kind of task it is, even if it is a task that requires the sacrifice of one's life, it must be voluntary. I don't care what the task is, but before that, I am a police officer who has sworn an oath. I also believe that my country will not hurt innocent people just because of a mission." 18 suddenly showed an evil smile and raised his eyebrows. "So, your answer is to refuse?" Wang Yuechuan just glanced at the man indifferently and walked out of the room without saying a word. He finally organized and would do his best to complete any difficult task assigned by the organization. But he was not a machine that only knew how to complete the task. "My existence is confidential and no leakage is allowed." 18 turned around and looked at the back of Wang Yuechuan, who was about to leave. "Do you know what it means for you to leave like this?" Wang Yuechuan didn't stop and sneered. "Of course it means that I don't have to work with a psychopath, that's all." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Yuechuan suddenly had a feeling of being in a deadly situation. He had only practiced the Book of the Dead for a short time, but his senses were getting stronger and stronger day by day. 18 was suddenly attacking. Wang Yuechuan staggered his body at a very fast speed, and 18 was kicking fiercely at his back, which even made the sound of wind. Based on this, Wang Yuechuan could conclude that 18 was a guy who was very good at fighting. Wang Yuechuan didn't dare to be careless. He directly retreated and observed 18's movements again. He wasn't too frightened because he was confident in his fighting ability. On the other hand, he also had the mysterious power of the Book of the Dead, so he naturally had something to rely on. But unless it was absolutely necessary, he was unwilling to expose the power of the Book of the Dead. "The person who recommended you said that you are the elite of the elite, but I don't think so." 18 had a mocking look on his face. "You're just SOSO." Wang Yuechuan snorted coldly. His body tightened, and he suddenly burst out like a leopard. He threw an uppercut straight at 18's chest. In the army where he served, he had never been afraid of fighting with anyone in the arena. However, 18's strength far exceeded Wang Yuechuan's imagination. He originally thought that this would cause 18 to retreat or be unable to react in time, but unexpectedly, this uppercut, which was almost an all-out attack, was easily received by 18. 18's palm completely wrapped around Wang Yuechuan's fist. Her body didn't even take a step back. Wang Yuechuan could feel the strength coming from 18's hand that was clenching his fist, and he couldn't help but be shocked. A terrible pain came from his fist, as if it was being pressed by a hydraulic press. In just a moment, the pain made Wang Yuechuan break out in a cold sweat and his lips turned slightly pale. Wang Yuechuan took a deep breath, rotated his arm, and broke free. Then his body also rotated, and with the speed of the rotation, he slammed his elbow toward 18's face. 18 calmly took a small step back. At the same time, she stretched out her hand and pressed on Wang Yuechuan's waist. With a little force, before Wang Yuechuan's elbow hit, his body was directly pushed out and fell to the ground. Wang Yuechuan got up from the ground in a rather embarrassing manner, and his eyes were fixed on every part of 18's body. He knew that he might have encountered the most terrifying opponent since his debut. With such skills and a number as a name, Wang Yuechuan felt more and more mysterious about 18's identity. "You can't win against me." 18 smiled faintly at this time, "so you won't walk out of this room." 18 calmly tidied up her messy sleeves because of her big movements, looked at Wang Yuechuan and said, "To be honest, I like your answer just now. However, you don't meet the requirement." Wang Yuechuan saw a ruthless thing in 18's eyes, murderous intent. He had caught a lot of murderers and had seen the murderous intent of these guys. Those who wanted to kill, their eyes couldn't be deceived, Whether you can walk out or not, you'll know after you try. Wang Yuechuan sighed and his eyes narrowed slightly. His eyes were like a small whirlpool. At this moment, 18's eyes suddenly became sluggish in this whirlpool, and he was absent-minded for a moment. At this moment of absent-mindedness, a huge force slammed into 18's abdomen. He seemed to be in disbelief that such a change would happen. At this time, after Wang Yuechuan hit 18's abdomen with a heavy punch, he didn't stop. He instantly bounced up, bent his arm, and directly slammed his elbow toward 18's neck. And at this moment, 18 raised his hand to block at the last moment. This impact was almost all of Wang Yuechuan's strength. Although 18 blocked it, he still staggered back 4 or 5 steps before stabilizing his body. Wang Yuechuan didn't dare to pursue. He had just used the ability of the Book of the Dead to make 18 absent-minded, but he didn't expect his will to be so strong. He was only absent-minded for a moment, and then he completely woke up. What a terrifying guy. Very good guy, you surprised me. 18 slowly exhaled at this time. Wang Yuechuan sneered, really? Do you want to say that you're only starting to get serious now? 18 shook his head and waved his hand at the same time. Under Wang Yuechuan's puzzled gaze, he sat back down. Why should I fight with you? I don't want to be tricked by your special ability again. Next time, I'm afraid I won't be so lucky to wake up in time. Really? What special ability? Wang Yuechuan said calmly. I've been strong since I was a child. 18 pulled the cork of the red wine bottle and began to pour the red wine. This world is very big. It's not an absolute secret that some people have mastered abilities that ordinary people don't know about. Well, I'm not interested in digging out your secrets. Come and have a drink to moisten your throat. Let's talk about what to do next. What do you mean? Wang Yuechuan frowned, but he didn't understand. He felt that from the moment he walked into this room, he had completely fallen into a big net woven by 18. 18 was like a huge spider hiding in the dark, and he became the insect that crashed into the net. What do I mean? 18 raised her glass at this time and saluted Wang Yuechuan from afar. Of course, you are qualified. Your question just now. Wang Yuechuan didn't relax his vigilance. 18 smiled slightly at this time. If I said that just now, if you were sure that you could kill the traffic policeman downstairs without hesitation, you would not only lose the qualification for this task, but I would even let you pack up and go home directly. Would you believe it? We don't need the kind of killing machine that has no scruples in order to complete the task. Wang Yuechuan, you are good, interesting. Sure enough, everything is just a test? 18 glanced at Wang Yuechuan and suddenly said, I know that there must be a lot of things that you don't understand in your heart, and you even feel uncomfortable about what happened between us before, but 18 suddenly stood up, raised her arm to salute, and her body was as straight as a pole. At this moment, Wang Yuechuan couldn't see any trace of calmness on 18's face, only seriousness and a feeling of iron blood that shocked Wang Yuechuan. National Security Special Operations Bureau, 9th Bureau, 3rd Action Group Leader Lu Jigang, Code 18. After 18 said this sentence, Wang Yuechuan had a trace of solemnity. At this time, 18 took out a small ID book from her clothes to prove her identity. Wang Yuechuan reached out to take it and opened it to take a look. Steel seal, signature, and all kinds of certificate. For a person who had handled cases for many years, he naturally had the ability to distinguish between real and fake document. After closing the ID, Wang Yuechuan took a deep breath and returned the ID to 18's hand with both hands. Then he took a step back and stomped on the ground, making a sonorous sound. His standing posture was also tall and straight, and he also raised his hand to salute. Provincial Public Security Bureau subordinate. Wang Yuechuan greets Officer Lu. 18 said seriously at this time, I have obtained the consent of your superior. Now there is a special task entrusted to you. Are you willing to accept it? Wang Yuechuan clasped his hands on both sides of his waist and looked up. I am willing to obey the organization's arrangement, 18 said. Very good. Now, pick up the fruit knife on the table. Wang Yuechuan stepped forward and picked up the fruit knife. Then he took a step back again and stood back to his original place. His movements were meticulous. Use this knife to stab the traffic police downstairs. Wang Yuechuan was startled, but he just frowned. He was not impulsive. Because 18's request this time was to stab people, not kill them. 18 said slowly at this time, we need you to become a wanted criminal and then escape. Next, I need you to join a special organization. Special organization? An international mercenary group. 18 took out a USB flash drive from her clothes. This is the information of this mercenary group. After you finish reading it, destroy it immediately. Understood. Wang Yuechuan took a deep breath. At this time, he already understood the few questions 18 had asked him before. As expected, he was going to be a spy in this operation. But why would he, a person from the Provincial Public Security Bureau, take on this kind of task instead of an elite of 18's organization? I know you have a lot of doubts in your heart, 18 said slowly at this time, but for some reasons I can't tell you the truth for the time being. But you can rest assured, as you said, the country will not give up anyone who is loyal to it. We need to use you because we have no other choice. I hope you can understand. Understood. 18 continued, from now on, you will be deprived of all your duties. During the mission, you will not be able to get any support. At the same time, your only contact is me. I can give you a day to explain to your relatives, but you can't leak any content of our conversation tonight. Otherwise, you will be dealt with as treason. Reporting to Sir, there is no need, Wang Yuechuan said indifferently. 18 nodded, then took out a black mobile phone. Take this phone. We will use this phone to contact each other in the future. Wang Yuechuan nodded with a solemn expression and took the phone directly, but suddenly asked, Sir, if I stab the traffic policeman downstairs, what will happen to him? 18 said indifferently, you don't have to worry about this. I will naturally arrange it. I believe you can clearly distinguish where to stab someone without killing him. Sir, is this a way to make me a wanted criminal? Wang Yuechuan suddenly asked. And the most direct way. 18 nodded, of course we can forge many reasons. But what is more simple and crude than killing a police officer? We can't do anything to ordinary people, and the comrade downstairs, we will naturally compensate him later. You can rest assured. If that's the case, sir, I don't think you need to stab him. Wang Yuechuan said slowly, in fact, before I came to see you, I was an absconding murderer. 18 was startled and looked at Wang Yuechuan up and down, but he didn't ask the reason, but nodded. Murderer? Very good, a murderer dares to come to see me, you are the first. 18 shook his head and patted Wang Yuechuan on the shoulder. The red wine in this mansion is good, don't waste it. Let's just stay here for a while and relax before the mission. Next, for you, it will be like a scourge. 18 left, and Wang Yuechuan watched him leave calmly. He sat in the room that had been booked long ago. The equipment in this place was complete, and there was a computer next to it, which seemed to be prepared for him to check the information in the USB flash drive. Wang Yuechuan didn't check the information in the USB flash drive immediately, but took out his phone and dialed a number. His superior, the leader he trusted, and the person who let him come to Lonling Mansion, the voice he was familiar with, the person who adopted him from the orphanage and raised him, his father. Did you see him? Wang Yuechuan nodded. I saw him. He gave me a task. Well, you don't need to tell me what the task is. It involves the affairs of that institution, and it needs to be kept absolutely confidential. I know. Wang Yuechuan continued to nod. On the one hand, he made this call to confirm 18's identity again. Now, listening to his father's tone, there was no doubt. On the other hand, it was a farewell. The other end of the phone was silent for a while, and finally there was a voice. Yuechuan, be careful. Wang Yuechuan felt warm in his heart and whispered, "You said that I was lucky, but don't worry. However, I'm afraid that I can't come back this year. You take care of yourself. By the way, tonight is Christmas Eve. It's not our holiday, but it's suitable for the occasion. Dad, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas." After saying this, 18 showed a wicked smile, and then turned off the phone. At this moment, he was standing on Tiantai Mountain in a building far away from Lonling Mansion. "Hey, you're here?" At this time, a hearty voice suddenly came from behind 18. He turned his head and saw a young man with a scarf around his neck and a bag in his hand. Taisetsu. Taisetsu blinked and floated over curiously, looking up and down. "Sister 18, why are you dressed like this? How did you become a man?" "I know, you found a sugar daddy again, right?" "Sister 18, do you want me to cooperate with you?" 18 turned around, and her body gradually changed as she turned. When she faced Taisetsu, she had turned into a black shadow wearing a black robe that covered her whole body. Chapter 752. In fact, after the lesson ended, 18 no longer had the power to command Taisetsu. There was no hierarchy between Black Soul Envoys. All Black Soul Envoys were under the management of Yu Yi. Between them, there was at most a relationship between a senior and a junior. What's more, Taisetsu was a black soul who wielded the Zhanlu sword, so 18 naturally wouldn't treat him as an ordinary black soul envoy. "No, don't. This is my own business." Regarding Taisetsu's friendliness, 18 indifferently refused. "Also, I remember that you should have gone to find Master, right? Why are you here?" "I encountered some magical things and was delayed for a long time." Taisetsu shrugged. "In addition, my boss gave me half a day off." "Half a day off?" 18 was slightly surprised under the face covered by the black fog. For a while, she couldn't guess whether this so-called holiday was the same as the kind of holiday she knew. It was just that Black Soul Envoys were strictly speaking independent individuals. Except for the fact that they looked for a patron from the club, the entire group of Black Soul Envoys could be described as sweeping the snow in front of their door. In the past, when there were many Black Soul Envoys, there were many examples of Black Soul Envoys who didn't exchange a word before they died. "Is that so? Then you should cherish it." 18 nodded. "Yeah, so I prepared some things." Taisetsu smiled and then glanced at the bag in his hand. 18 took a look and found that there were some ingredients inside. She shook her head. Black Soul Envoys didn't need food to survive. In her opinion, Taisetsu was wasting time. "Do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't disturb you." "Understood." Taisetsu nodded. At this time, he felt a little anxious to return home, so he naturally didn't pay too much attention to what 18 wanted to do. He greeted 18, and a twisted vortex appeared behind him. Taisetsu walked into the vortex step by step. 18 watched quietly. She could clearly feel what was going on with this twisted vortex. This was the power of the new boss. It might be a one-time one-way transmission, or it might be a one-time two-way transmission. But it was enough for 18 to experience a lot of things. She couldn't help but have this thought. So it's because she's under the new boss's direct line that she's being specially taken care of. And that idiot Taienzi too. "Oh right, this is for you." Just as he was about to enter the whirlpool, Taisetsu suddenly stopped, reached into the bag, and then threw something towards 18. She subconsciously took it and glanced at it. Surprised, she asked, "What is this?" "Little cake," Taisetsu answered casually. 18 said indifferently, "I know. I asked you, why did you give me this thing? Black Soul doesn't need to eat." Taisetsu waved his hand. His figure slowly disappeared into the whirlpool, and the twisting whirlpool also disappeared quickly. Only Taisetsu's voice could be heard at the end. "Didn't you say it was your birthday when you and Bamboo were in the park last time? Actually, I don't know if it is or not, but we are colleagues. I don't know when your birthday is, so let's just treat it as that day. It's okay to treat you to a piece of cake." Just treat it as building a good relationship. After all, we all work for the boss. Furthermore, I only just remembered this matter, so you. 18 didn't hear what he said after that because the whirlpool had disappeared. She looked at the small package of cake in her hand. Whether it was before or after she became a Black Soul envoy, it was the first time she received something so insincere. The black soul on 18's face kept rolling, as if it was indicating that her expression was gloomy and uncertain at the moment. Finally, she raised her hand and threw the small cake out, snorting coldly, "Boring!" However, the small cake fell downstairs. The moment it was about to land on the street, it suddenly rose up, reversing its original path, and finally fell into 18's hand again. "Seeing that you are the successor of Jean-Louis Sword, don't say that I am unreasonable in the future." 18's voice seemed to be very unhappy, but in the end, she still put the thing into her black robe. Loosening the scarf around his neck, the handsome young man walked out of the twisting whirlpool and came to the door of a unit in a semi-new Western-style building. The young man took a deep breath and tidied up his clothes. At the same time, his youthful appearance began to mature and gradually took shape. He had already grown up to be more than 10 years old. He knocked on the door gently. "Who is it? Please wait a minute." A woman's voice came from the house. He said loudly, "Sister Lin. It's me, Gan Jing. I bought groceries. Let me cook for you." Zixing observed the Shinryu Saintess in Zixing Land. After she carefully described her experience in Yenwiyue, she still hid the matter of finding the animal skin map in Nagato's house. Because the other party was the Shinryu Saintess, Zixing naturally wouldn't look at her as if she was an ordinary little girl. However, can this Shinryu Saintess solve some of her doubts? Well, according to what you said, Izanagi and Izanami actually appeared in Yenwiyue world. Long Shirua touched her chin with one hand, seemingly lost in thought. Zixing didn't say anything to disturb her. Long Shirua slowly said, "These two guys were the gods of incense in Fusang Island in the beginning. They can be regarded as the incarnation of the indigenous people of Fusang Island. They aren't particularly strong, but they aren't necessarily weak either. If the two join forces, they are somewhat threatening. But if everything you said is true, then I have some speculations about the disappearance of the gods in Fusang country and the decline of Shinto." "What do you mean?" Zixing frowned. Long Shirua said indifferently, "You should know that the rules of heaven and earth reject all transcendence now, right? The more powerful the transcendence, the more they will be suppressed." Zixing said with a solemn expression, "The age of Dharma, yes and no." Long Shirua shook her head. "To be precise, this is an instinctive struggle of the world. Because the existence of the transcendence has always been devouring the resources of the Lord's world. Facing the plunderers, who wouldn't resist. There are many god systems in the Lord's world, but they have all disappeared in the long river of history. The most famous one is the twilight of the gods of all living beings in the Western system. According to the Saintess, could it be that the twilight of the gods is driven by the will of the Lord's world?" Zixing opened her mouth in surprise. "I'm just speculating." Long Shirua shook her head. "However, different god systems have disappeared or fallen one after another. Even the door of my Kelowna underworld is tightly closed. Now that the demon clan is also in a state of ruin, they have to rely on the luck of the people to survive. Are there many things that are unrelated? I don't think so." Speaking of this, Long Shirua suddenly looked at Zixing. There must be a decline in prosperity. No matter what, even if they have cultivated the so-called divine body, as long as they have not transcended, they can't escape the 5 decay of the heavens. Some people don't want to die in a real sense, so they can only exhaust all means to completely separate themselves from the Lord's world as much as possible in order to be safe in a corner. But after all, these guys have plundered countless resources from the Lord's world in the beginning, and have long been branded with the Lord's world. Now, it's easier said than done to truly cut them off. Your Highness the Saintess is saying that Izanami's Yen Wiwa world is to cut off the connection with the Lord's world? Zixing came to a realization. Logically speaking, it should be so. Long Shiro was puzzled. But if this is the plan, why did they open it again and suck you in? The cinema. Behind this, could it be that someone is secretly pushing it? Your Highness the Saintess, do you know if there are any people who have successfully transcended in the Lord's world? Zixing suddenly asked. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. Long Shirua shook her head again. Shinryu is completely tied to the Lord's world because of his origin from Kelowna's dragon vein. There is no possibility of separation at all. Once Kelowna's dragon vein leaves the Lord's world, it will die out. If there is a place where the transcendents gather, how can I go there? Her voice was gradually becoming deeper and deeper. Zixing heard the great helplessness in these words, and immediately fell silent. There were also vague records of the Greedy Wolf clan. It was not the first time she heard about it, but her heart was heavy. Legend has it that Punglai can make people become immortals and transcend heaven and earth. Zixing looked at her coldly. It is also said that the first Shinryu of Kelowna came from Punglai. I know what you want to ask. Long Shirua frowned, but I advise you to give up this idea. To tell you the truth, the origin of the first Shinryu is also blank in the inheritance of the Shinryu. The so-called first Shinryu came from Punglai. Is it true or not? Even if it is me. This Shinryu's family don't tell outsiders. She changed her posture and seemed to be more comfortable. She looked at Zixing again and said slowly, Many years ago, there was a very talented and ambitious Greedy Wolf star in the Greedy Wolf clan. He wanted to know this secret, so he found the Shinryu of the same generation. After that battle, I believe you know what happened to the Greedy Wolf star, right? I think it is impossible for this part not to be recorded in the inheritance. However, Zixing did not give up and said, But Your Highness Saintess, can you only watch the demon race be worn down by heaven and earth and finally disappear completely? I can't do anything. Long Shirua sighed. If this is the case, then we can only follow the will of the heavens. Now that the human path is prosperous, the fate that the demon race borrows from the human path can still allow the demon race to survive for a long time. As for whether there will be a solution in the future, no one can say for sure. So, you don't have to worry too much. Who knows what will happen in the future? It is said that the peak of Mount Tai was once the place where Punglai appeared for the last time. Zixing took a deep breath. Your Highness Saintess, for countless years, the cultivators of Kelowna and the ancient lineage of the demon race have held a memorial ceremony on Mount Tai every 10 years. Do you think, is it in vain? Long Shirua was silent for a long time. Looking at the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, who was still very young to her, she finally said softly, The mountain is not high, but it is famous when there is an immortal. The water is not deep, but it is spiritual when there is a dragon. Your Highness Saintess? Zixing seemed to be enlightened, but she couldn't grasp anything in a flash. You can go out, I'm a little tired. Long Shirua shook her head. There is a place for food at the back, and there is also a kitchen. If you are hungry, you can make some food yourself. Madame Zixing knew that this true dragon saintess had said so much today, which was already extremely rare. Now that the other party had asked her to leave, she had a proud personality and did not intend to continue to pester her. She directly bowed and slowly retreated. Long Shirua looked at the closed door, but suddenly muttered, Everyone says that Punglai is good, but who knows that the immortals are suffering? She shook her head, sighed, glanced at the folded A4 paper, and immediately cursed, F***ck. How can I find it? When Long Shirua really planned to light another cigarette to calm down, there was suddenly a knock on the door outside. Who is it? She muttered impatiently, and said in an unfriendly tone, Come in. The person who pushed the door and came in was Zhuefeng, who was looking around. Seeing Zhuefeng come in, Long Shirua was taken aback. Of course, Xuefeng was also taken aback. He originally thought that Lord Long was here, but he didn't expect to see little Lord Long. About little Lord Long, he had heard Mo Xiaofei mention it. He had also seen him once or twice, but they didn't talk much. Xuefeng? Why are you looking for me? Long Shiruo asked subconsciously. I'm not. I'm here to find Lord Long. She is not here. Then I won't disturb you, Xuefeng said and wanted to leave in a hurry. Long Shiruo hurriedly shouted, Wait, if you want to find her, you can tell me. Before she left, she told me to pay more attention to your matter. Say it. About your matter. Xuefeng didn't know who she was referring to, but since she said so, Xuefeng still stopped. Here's the thing, little Lord Long. Xuefeng came forward, and after thinking for a while, suddenly asked, I was going to ask Lord Long for some knowledge about ancient stars. Long Shiruo was stunned, and said subconsciously, Knowledge about ancient stars? Why do you want to learn this? This system is very complicated. Without hundreds of years of immersion, don't even think about getting started. Young man, don't bite off more than you can chew. Laying a good foundation is the way to go. Why don't you cultivate your demonic energy first? You seem to be so young. Xuefeng moved his lips, as if he wanted to refute something, but he seemed to have some misgivings, and finally nodded. Okay, I understand. Long Shiruo sighed, but suddenly thought of something, and stood up from the chair, stared at Xuefeng and asked, Wait, why do you suddenly want to learn about ancient stars? Who told you? I heard about it. Xuefeng hesitated for a moment, and suddenly felt that he was a little lacking in thinking. Long Shiruo stared at Xuefeng for a while, and then narrowed her eyes, as if she wanted to see through Xuefeng. Then she frowned, and a trace of disbelief flashed in her eyes, and then she fell silent. That little Lord Long? Xuefeng, right? Long Shiruo sat down. From today onwards, you and Mo Xiaofei will go to the underground training ground of the hospital for training. Huh? Also, from now on, you need to keep a distance from Zixing. Long Shiruo stared at Xuefeng very seriously and said sternly, Don't go crazy. Chapter 753. When Xuefeng heard that he could stay in the hospital's underground training ground to train with Mo Xiaofei, he was naturally very happy. It was true that he had activated the Greedy Wolf Star, but no one had ever told him the origin of the Greedy Wolf Star. Although he felt that the origin of this Greedy Wolf Star was very extraordinary, compared to getting the guidance of Kelowna Shinryu, it was hard to say which side was better. After all, he was young. He grew up listening to various legends of Kelowna Shinryu. Naturally, he was more inclined to get the personal guidance of Kelowna Shinryu. However, for this little Lord Long directly pointed out that he couldn't get too close to Purple Star, Xuefeng was unhappy in his heart. A kind of pride hidden in his body made Xuefeng feel very depressed, which suddenly diluted his expectation of getting the guidance of Shinryu. As if seeing through Xuefeng's mind, Long Shiruo said indifferently at this time, Don't be dissatisfied with me for bidding you to contact the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan. The inheritance of the Greedy Wolf clan can be traced back to ancient times. This clan belongs to the core ancient bloodline among the demon bloodlines. The young master of the Greedy Wolf clan has the highest status in the clan. As for you, Long Shiruo narrowed her eyes and said in a playful tone, And you, to put it bluntly, are just a wandering little demon. Whether it is identity, status, or even strength, do you think you can compare to the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan? Xuefeng quietly clenched his fist. He felt that if his Greedy Wolf Star inheritance was exposed, Long Shiruo said coldly, I know that you have some secrets. You may think that they can get you out of this predicament, but the Wolf clan is arrogant. Only when you are really strong can you truly conquer the Wolf clan, especially the Greedy Wolf clan. If you can only rely on some foreign objects and not yourself to convince the Wolf clan now, is it useful? Xuefeng was stunned. Long Shi finally said lightly, No matter how high one's status is, it is not as practical as one's own strength. What was in the future was still in the future. The present was the most important. The cultivators of Kelowna were seizing every moment, and the demons were the same. Your potential isn't bad, but potential is just potential. Before your potential becomes your own ability, you'd better behave yourself. Juefeng loosened his clenched fists after hearing that. He suddenly remembered that Madame Purple Star had given him a jade pendant, saying that if he encountered any difficulties in the future, he could use it to enter the plateau and obtain the protection of the greedy wolf clan. He felt that what Lord Xiaolong said was right. One day, he would be able to appear in front of Purple Star in a truly powerful manner, and not be hindered by the so-called inheritance or identity. That was what he wanted. I understand. Juefeng took a deep breath, then said goodbye to Long Shirua, saying that he planned to go home and pack up. After that, he would directly live in the underground training ground. If his cultivation didn't bear any results, he would swear that he would never come out. Looking at Juefeng's firm eyes, Long Shirua raised her hand to interrupt and say something, but in the end she didn't stop him. Watching Juefeng finally push open the door and leave, and after respectfully closing the door, she weakly put down her hand. I didn't ask you to live here. Forget it, it's better to have this guy under my nose than wandering outside. Long Shirua muttered to herself, why did Juefeng's greedy wolf star suddenly open? Strange, they were eating hot pot. Ren Xiling ordered a table full of beef and mutton, like a hungry ghost who had just been reincarnated. She said that she wanted to eat hot pot, so of course, it was more down-to-earth to eat like this. Of course, Li Zi had a better appetite, but she ate much more elegantly, although she didn't stop and kept stuffing food into her mouth. The hot pot restaurant wasn't a high-class place, so it was noisy and full of people. White smoke curled up from the tables, and people's voices were endless, like a downtown market. Luocio hadn't eaten with Li Zi at the table for a while. The last time they met should be before the Golden Week. That time, it was to welcome Lui Yun, who came to study in the remote seaside village, to welcome her. Li Zi suddenly stopped eating halfway, as if she thought of something. She took out 3 beautifully wrapped gifts from her backpack separately, and sent them to Luocio, Yu Yi and Ren Xiling. Her reason was very simple, just for the occasion. Ren Xiling probably didn't expect to receive Li Zi's gift in this place, and at this time. When she was about to put a piece of beef into her mouth, she quickly stopped, wiped her mouth and opened the gift curiously on the spot. It was a necklace, and the pendant was a small crystal in the shape of a water droplet. It looked like a crystal, but it seemed to be a diamond. Ren Xiling certainly didn't think that Li Zi could afford a diamond with her low salary. Her salary was probably not enough for her daily meals. But when she touched the pendant, there was a cool feeling, which made her quite comfortable. Especially in this hot pot restaurant, the air was turbid and stuffy, so the comfortable feeling suddenly expanded a lot. It was probably not an ordinary one. Ren Xiling thought that she was well informed, but she couldn't tell what it was. She couldn't help marveling. Luocio's and Yu Ye's gifts were all made of the same water droplet crystal. Yu Ye's gift was a small bracelet. As for Luocio's gift, it was a pocket watch inlaid with water droplet. Li Zi, these gifts are not cheap, right? These things were obviously not cheap, so Ren Xiling didn't dare to accept them. Li Zi was her assistant and she just took care of her to help her. She didn't intend to ask for anything. Besides, Li Zi had been with her for half a year, and they had a deep relationship, so she was more reluctant to let her spend money. These things? In fact, they are not valuable. Li Zi smiled and started to move her chopsticks again. I dug them up in my hometown. When I was a child, I went to the mountain, and there were many of them. I dug a big one before, but then I gave the biggest one away. Ren Xiling was stunned. Obviously, she was not satisfied with this explanation. The water droplet crystal pendant was like jade, but it was as round as jade and had a diamond-like luster. She became more curious and looked at Luocio and Yu Yi. Do you know what this is? Miss Maid shook her head and said that she didn't know, but she was very grateful for Li Zi's gift. Luochu knew what it was, but she shook her head. Where is your hometown? Why are there so many strange things? Ren Xiling liked this necklace very much. When she was choosing the sauce, she mixed it with too spicy, so her body was boiling. At this time, when she held the necklace, the burning feeling subsided a lot. She felt more and more magical about this thing. Besides, it was the magic medicine that made Ma Haud, who was in his twilight years, directly start the second spring and succeed in making a baby. Well, it's just a small village in the north, Li Zi said casually. There's nothing special except that it often snows. Ren Xiling recalled that Li Zi's resume mentioned the place where she came from. It was indeed a small city in the northeast, but she always felt that it was not the real place where Li Zi was born. But Li Zi seemed to be unwilling to talk more about the specific place, so Ren Xiling didn't continue to ask. They were at the dinner table, and the diners were relatives and friends, not the interviewees in the workplace. She could always distinguish between business and private affairs. Take me there to have fun if you have the chance, Ren Xiling said with some yearning. I have never seen heavy snow in my life. It can't be, right? Li Zi replied curiously. Luochu suddenly said, she is afraid of the cold, very afraid of the cold. In winter, she can hide in the quilt all day without going to work, even without eating. Afraid of the cold, Li Zi said thoughtfully. I see. Ren Xiling glared at Luochu with dissatisfaction and turned into Aunt Ren in an instant. So what if I have never seen snow? You have seen it before. The furthest people have been back to their hometown. Alas, other people's sons are so good. They invited their mothers to travel to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, the 3 provinces in the Northeast, and Europe. Did you do that? No. Luochu just smiled. This was the way he got along with Ren Xiling for many years. Facing Ren Xiling's dissatisfaction and self-blame, Luochu just calmly put a piece of beef in Ren Xiling's bowl. Ren Xiling clicked her tongue and started to eat. The next time, they chatted casually and quietly. There were 4 seats at the table, but 3 of them were not ordinary people. However, nothing out of the ordinary happened. It was not necessary for something unusual to happen. In fact, being able to get together harmoniously and have a good meal was already an unusual thing in a busy life. The time to get together was naturally precious. When it was almost 9 o'clock in the evening, Ren Xiling paid the bill and suggested that they go to the central square. There was a stage set up there with some stars and activities. It was quite lively. The road to the central square was not far, but it was crowded with men and women. Not long after, Ren Xiling and Luochu were separated. Several police cars sped past, and the sound of sirens sounded all the way, which made people look sideways. They didn't know what happened on this peaceful night that made these police officers so anxious. Lu Zixing looked at these disappearing police cars, but he didn't think too much. Since seeing his wife at the tea house, he wandered alone on the street. He suddenly felt that he had no place to go, no place to stay. He suddenly remembered what happened when he was studying abroad. At that time, many of his classmates were from China. Before the holidays, some of them were always unhappy. He remembered that there was a student in his class who worked part-time and had good grade. The professor at the school had arranged a future job for him, but he refused and said that he planned to return to China after graduation. He said that people had roots after all. Where there was home, there would be root. His roots were his home, and his home was in his motherland. At that time, Lu Zixing didn't think much of these words. Where there was home, there would be root. After working hard abroad, he would bring his parents over in the future. Naturally, he would have a home, and the conditions would be even better, right? Roots and home, which one came before the other, Lu Zixing couldn't figure it out. He felt as if he had walked into a dead end. There was no road in front, and there were towering walls on both sides. The only exit was behind him, but he didn't dare to go back. He could only stay where he was. Lu Zixing suddenly felt a little dizzy, and the wound in his ear became more and more painful. It was as if he was being burned. There were 2 more police cars in front of him, but Lu Zixing didn't care. He sat alone on the bench at the bus stop for more than an hour. In front of the bus stop, many people were waiting for the bus to arrive. Some people made it and got on the bus. Some people didn't make it and could only wait for the next bus. Some people directly got on the wrong bus and regretted it. Life was probably like this. On the bus, waiting for a suitable bus. But in the end, there would still be a time when you get on the wrong bus. My bus, where is it? His eyes gradually couldn't see the surroundings. He just focused on the 1 yuan coin lying quietly in his palm. All of a sudden, Lu Zixing took a deep breath and tossed the coin into the air again. He guessed heads. In the end, he was given the wrong answer. This was already the 61st time. He didn't know how long his bad luck would last. He could only repeatedly verify it by tossing the coin again and again. Although he knew that it had only been 2 days since the end of the strong luck, it would definitely not be a short period of time when his luck returned. Shaking his head, Lu Zixing sighed. When he was about to leave, his body was hit by a person who was rushing to get on the bus. Lu Zixing was startled. He didn't pay attention for a moment, and the coin in his hand was knocked to the ground. The round 1 yuan coin fell to the ground and rolled away like a wheel. Lu Zixing suddenly felt fear, as if his life had been knocked away. He almost didn't think about it and quickly caught up with the coin that was far away. It didn't roll far, nor did it roll under the manhole cover of the sewer. It was very short and soon stopped. Lu Zixing quickly picked it up and held it in his hand. Only then did he instinctively breathe a sigh of relief. However, there was a strong light in front of him. Lu Zixing looked around blankly. He was in the middle of the road at the moment, and a car was speeding toward him. The headlights were too bright and dazzling, making him feel as if he had walked into a pure white world. He didn't hear any exclamations because there were too many vehicles around. The sound of the horn was enough to cover everything. Chapter 754. There was an ear-piercing sound of brake. On the road, 2 black marks were drawn by the sudden stop of the car. When the driver ran out of the car in horror, his face was pale. Fortunately, he had been making an emergency stop, and the car behind him was also in an emergency stop. Therefore, there was no car accident on the road. But the drivers who were forced to stop naturally scolded him. But the driver obviously didn't care about being scolded. He just hurriedly ran to the front of his car and looked at the man who had fallen in front of his car. Because there was a bus stop next to them, many people were watching. A man fell in front of the car and the driver looked panicked. It was easy for people to think of something. The driver hurriedly explained, I didn't hit this person. He suddenly fell to the ground. I didn't. I stopped. But the man didn't wake up. The driver was worried and couldn't care about anything else. He hurriedly helped the man up and shook him a few times, but the man didn't feel anything. It didn't look like a scam. The driver gritted his teeth and quickly took out his phone. At this time, he could only choose to call the police or the ambulance for help. The ambulance arrived faster than the traffic police car. The suspected driver quickly explained the situation to the medical staff. After the medical staff in the ambulance confirmed that the man was really unconscious, the driver became more anxious. He clearly didn't hit anyone, but the person fell down. If it wasn't because he was scared. If this guy was a coward and was scared to death in the end, then the driver wouldn't be able to explain himself. Later, the traffic police came and hurriedly understood the situation. After 2 of them checked the nearby surveillance cameras, they finally confirmed that the driver wasn't lying. But the patient was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Whether there was anything wrong with him or not, they still had to wait for the doctor's diagnosis to make a conclusion. Officer, I really didn't hurt this person. You have to believe me. The driver's face was pale. Now he had followed the group to the hospital. You didn't hit him, but you were speeding, weren't you? The traffic police stared at him. This is the hospital. Be quiet. Wait for the doctor to come out and see the results. As the unlucky driver waited anxiously, the doctor from the emergency room finally came out. Officer, this gentleman doesn't have any injuries on his body. The reason why he suddenly fainted was because his wound was infected with tetanus. That's why he suddenly fainted. Tetanus. The traffic policeman was stunned. The doctor frowned and nodded. I don't know why that person's ear was cruelly cut off. But after cutting it off, he didn't treat the wound properly. Now he's infected with tetanus. If not for the timely delivery, I'm afraid that even the gods would not be able to save her life. Cut off the ear. The traffic policeman frowned when he heard that. He was trying to guess what kind of situation would cause someone to cut off the ear. Was it because of revenge, or was it because of something else? However, this kind of practice of cutting off the ears was a bit like something that some extreme gangsters would do. The traffic police knew that this matter was a little out of his scope of responsibility, so he directly reported it to the higher-up. But the driver didn't care about this. He was afraid that something would happen to the man. Doctor, then, can the person inside recover? He was sent here in time. His life is saved. The doctor sighed. Obviously, the rescue was very urgent, so his spirit had been tense. Well, see if you can contact his family. Let's go through the admission procedures for him first. The driver thought for a moment. He knew some of the rigid rules and unreasonable places in the hospital. At this time, he was afraid of delaying the treatment. If something happened in the future, the man's family would blame him. It would be endless. He had to clench his teeth and say, "How about this? I'll help him with the admission procedures now. And this traffic policeman, you saw it too. Do you want to help?" Okay. The traffic policeman thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. They found a wallet from the patient's belongings with this person's ID card, Lou Zixing. When everything was done, the driver sat down tiredly and called his family. I don't want to. I don't know if I'm unlucky or that guy is unlucky. You said that he shouldn't run around when he's injured. Now, he has tetanus and almost died. He even harmed others. I won't talk about it. The traffic policeman is here. Traffic policeman, how is it? Have you contacted his family? The traffic policeman had a strange look at this time. At the same time, he was a little angry. We found them, but they didn't come. When they heard that there was no danger to his life, they didn't ask anymore. But they asked someone to send some money over. They said it was for treatment. They were so kind. And it was a mother. I've never seen such a mother. Then, what should I do? The driver hurriedly said. Well, why don't you go back first? I think there's nothing else. The statement has been written. Keep your phone connected these few days. Just make sure we can find you. The traffic policeman thought for a while and felt that the driver was not a big problem. There was no use in keeping him. The driver thought for a moment and felt that it was still not safe. He clenched his teeth and said, "How about this? I'll wait here for him to wake up. What if his family investigates in the future? No one can be sure about this. At least let him wake up and make it clear in front of me that it's his own problem. I didn't hit him, nor did I scare him." Okay. The traffic policeman agreed. In fact, he just reported this matter. He actually intended to transfer it to the police station, but he didn't know what happened tonight. The police in the city were mobilized. It was said that they had to work overtime temporarily to catch a dangerous murderer. He was notified that even the traffic police department was mobilized. "I have something to do. Why don't you stay here? If this person wakes up, you can inform me. This is my contact information." The traffic policeman wrote down a phone number. "Before his family sent him here, I took him to the hospital. Don't worry." The driver nodded and could only admit that he was unlucky. After the traffic policeman left, the driver casually bought some food and then stayed in front of Lou Zixing's bed. He thought that he would know when this guy woke up. He looked at Lu Zixing's unconscious appearance and glanced at the bandage on his ear. He frowned. The driver, Lu Zixing, had smooth skin. He didn't look like a person who did heavy work. How did he end up like this? As he thought about it, he sat on the folding chair. He slowly felt sleepy and closed his eyes. Wang Yuechuan finally took a look at the documents on the computer screen and pulled out the USB flash drive directly. He did not destroy the USB flash drive according to 18's instructions. Instead, he removed the hard disk of the computer in this room and prepared to take it away. Wang Yuechuan glanced at the time. It was almost 10 o'clock, but since 18 left, he didn't think about the phone number she gave him. Without the next instruction, Wang Yuechuan didn't know what to do next. When he was about to sort out what happened today, he suddenly heard the siren of a police car coming from outside. Wang Yuechuan hurriedly leaned against the window and looked down from it. He saw that 2 police cars had stopped downstairs at this moment. Several police officers got out of the car early and were looking up. Wang Yuechuan frowned. He believed in the efficiency of the police, but at this moment, he felt that the guys downstairs were too efficient. Maybe someone leaked his whereabouts. Was it 18? Wang Yuechuan didn't have time to think about it. At first, he escaped before receiving this task because he had no choice but to not leak the Book of the Dead. Now he couldn't be caught because he wanted to complete the confidential task that he didn't know the specific content of. Wang Yuechuan glanced downstairs again. At this time, another police car came. Ma Hao's car. This old horse was not an easy person to deal with. Although Wang Yuechuan didn't agree with Ma Hao's style of doing things, he had to admit that this old horse was indeed powerful. At this time, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Wang Yuechuan's body tightened, but he heard someone outside say, "Guest, please open the door." The police outside said that they were going to check the fire. "But it's okay. Our boss is familiar with them. It will be fine soon." "Did you find the person who provided the clue?" Ma Hao glanced at the entrance of Lanling residence in front of him and directly asked Lin Feng next to him. Lin Feng shook his head. They used a public phone, so they couldn't find the person. Ma Hao patted his head. "It's strange. Wang Yuechuan just left and someone provided the clue. It's like it was arranged." "Hearing you say that," Li Feng also muttered, "but Sir Ma, this leader's leader said that he could even be killed if necessary. Can you put on a show like this? Besides, Sir Ma, do you think that Wang Yuechuan offended the leader? He actually gave such an order. When this brat came here, he was alone. Moreover, he has only been here for a few days and has been acting mysteriously. Who knows what he has done in secret?" Ma Hao shook his head. "But since we received the order from above, we should act according to the instructions." With that, Ma Hao walked into Lanling residence. "You guys keep a close watch. Search every nook and cranny. Before I call for a retreat, don't let anyone leave this place." "Who are you? Do you know who I am? Hurry up and take your people away." A drunk young man walked out with a scantily clad woman in his arms. He shouted with a face full of displeasure, "Let me tell you, I'm very familiar with your bureau chief." Ma Hao waved his hand. "Who can wake this guy up? If you can't, take off his clothes and throw him out to dry." "Wait. What are you doing? Do you know who I am?" "I am." "Let me go. Let me go. My uncle is the city's Judge Wu. Let me go." Looking at the guy who was caught and taken away, Ma Hao rolled his eyes. With a look of concern for a level 10 handicapped person, he said, "The 18 Metropolis has been here for so long, how can there be such a retard?" Lin Feng kept saying yes. He didn't dare to say it. If it was someone else, they would usually give face. Only you, the old man, didn't take it seriously. "Reporting. All the rooms have been searched, no one was found." "Reporting. No one came in from the back door." Not long after, the policeman came to Ma Hao and reported the results of the search. Ma Hao was now guarding the lobby. The more he listened, the more he frowned. No one? Can't he have wings? Or is the report fake? Have you asked clearly? Sir Ma, we have asked clearly. According to the description of the staff here, Wang Yuechuan should have been here. But when we went to the room, there was no one in it. There were some slight traces of a fight. But the window was not broken, so he shouldn't have jumped out of the window. Does he know how to turn invisible? Ma Hao glared at him. Search for him again. Turn this place upside down and search for me. Also, where is the person in charge here? It's been so long, why hasn't he come over yet? Officer, I'm here. A slightly plump man in his 30s wearing a suit and a smile on his face hurried to Ma Hao. I am. The person in charge was quite depressed. To be honest, this Lonling residence was a place jointly owned by some powerful young masters in the city. Usually, not to mention the police, even the fire department would not check it. It was just that when those arrogant young masters heard the name Ma Hao, they all said that they were busy and would talk about it later. Officer, we are operating according to the law. We didn't do anything illegal. We are here to arrest him. Why are you in such a hurry? Ma Hao snorted. Don't let me get it right. You call your boss for help without knowing what's going on, right? Officer, I didn't. I'm busy. I don't care if you did or not. Ma Hao continued to snort coldly. Even if I can't catch the fugitive today, I still have to check it out properly. I suspect that you are soliciting prostitutes here. Officer. No. Officer. You can't do this. This is slander. This is framing. I can sue you. Lin Feng, copy my employee number to this guy and let him sue me. He can sue me however he wants. Ma Hao narrowed his eyes. Now, call out all the employees here. Don't let anyone who washes the toilets go. Employees? Lin Feng was stunned. Sir Ma, you mean Wang Yuechuan might have mixed in with the employees? Don't let go of any possibility. Go. Ma Hao put his hands on his waist, his eyes like an eagle, patrolling the lobby. In the corner of the lobby, a waiter lowered his head and quietly walked back, his expression somewhat dignified. At this time, I would rather you be a freeloader and mediocre. The waiter lowered his head and hurriedly walked toward the elevator in front. You in front, stop right there. Chapter 755. Seeing that the waiter didn't intend to turn around, Ma Hao directly put his hand on the waiter's shoulder, trying to force him to turn around. At this moment, the waiter shrugged his shoulder. At the same time, Ma Hao felt a strong force hit his stomach, and his whole body directly stepped back and finally fell on the ground. Wang Yuechuan. Sir Ma was shocked and angry at this time. This waiter was obviously Wang Yuechuan in disguise. You can't escape. Wang Yuechuan sighed in his heart. If he could leave here smoothly, it would save him a lot of trouble. But his wish couldn't come true. After Ma Hao's roar, the rest of the policemen reacted one after another. The first few people had already rushed over and blocked Wang Yuechuan's way. They even pulled out their guns. Wang Yuechuan, surrender, you can't escape. Sir Ma quickly got up, and at the same time tidied up his hat. Go back with me, I don't want to open fire on my former colleagues. You can't deal with me even if you open fire. Wang Yuechuan said lightly. He glanced at the policemen around him. Except for Ma Hao, how many of them had never shot a bullet since they left school? Wang Yuechuan looked up at the nearest young policeman, and suddenly said, How long have you graduated? The young man was stunned, and subconsciously said, 1.5 years. You can't hold a gun like this, Wang Yuechuan suddenly said. The young policeman subconsciously looked at the gun in his hands. But at the moment when he looked away, Wang Yuechuan moved. This was already a very tense situation. It took a lot of courage for a police officer to open fire, especially when the weapon that could kill was aimed at the person himself. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yuechuan quickly dodged the gun in the young policeman's hand. At the same time, he tightened his arm, directly strangling the young policeman's neck, and took the gun and pressed it against the young policeman's ear. Wang Yuechuan, you're crazy. Ma Hao's eyes widened. Ma, Sir Ma. Save me. The police officer who was taken hostage was trembling in fear. Wang Yuechuan, let him go. Don't make one mistake after another. Ma Hao's voice suddenly became heavy and cold. Wang Yuechuan remained silent. He had never thought that there would be a day when he would be held at gunpoint by his colleagues while he was committing a crime. However, he was a strong-willed person. Since he had already accepted the mysterious mission, he naturally wouldn't give up halfway. His expression was indifferent. While holding the hostage, he slowly walked towards the exit of the Lanling residence. In front of the door, 2 police officers pointed their guns at him in panic. Wang Yuechuan quickly fired a shot at the floor with the gun in his hand. When the bullets were fired, the sound of the explosion caused the guests, who were hiding at the side, to scream in horror. King dared to shoot. Ma Hao was furious. Have you forgotten the rules of the police? Wang Yuechuan, do you know what you're doing? You're just committing a crime. Ma Hao, I heard that you're very good at shooting. Wang Yuechuan said indifferently, do you dare to shoot at me? You! If you don't want to shoot, then get out of my way. Wang Yuechuan shook his head. I just want to leave here. As he spoke, he fired another shot at the feet of the 2 police officers who were blocking the door, making the scene even more tense. Get out of my way, let him out. Ma Hao took a deep breath. He couldn't figure out Wang Yuechuan's behavior, but at this moment, he didn't dare to bet that Wang Yuechuan wouldn't dare to kill him with the life of a young subordinate. A very stupid choice. Wang Yuechuan suddenly smiled. But at your age, of course, you'll have more concerns. Officer Ma, if it were me, I would at least arrange pursuers around before coming in. You have been too comfortable for too long. As he spoke, ignoring Ma Hao's expression, Wang Yuechuan looked at another police officer and said indifferently, You come here, close the door and pull down the broken door. No one is allowed to move. Bang! A shot was shot at Lin Feng's side. At that moment, Lin Feng quietly moved half a step. Lin Feng's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he looked at the small hole under his feet. His feet froze on the spot. At this moment, Ma Hao's face looked terrible. The police officer who was threatened to close the door looked at him, only to see Ma Hao gritting his teeth and waving his hand unwillingly. Rumble. Across the falling door, Ma Hao and Wang Yuechuan looked at each other, but their sight was finally blocked. Sir Ma. When the door just fell, Lin Feng looked at Ma Hao in horror and called him. At this moment, Ma Hao trembled all over. He came to the door, pushed the person away, and directly held the door open with both hands, but at this moment only the police officer who was held hostage fell to the ground, and there was no trace of Wang Yuechuan. Sir Ma, one of our cars is missing. Block all the roads. Ma Hao gritted his teeth. This person is extremely dangerous. Tell old Lu, ask him to send a sniper for me. Wang Yuechuan abandoned the stolen police car before it could drive far. He began to hide in the city alley. At this time, his brain was working quickly. He was familiar with all the tracking methods of the police, so naturally, he could think of a way to deal with it, so that he could escape better. At this time, his pocket suddenly vibrated. The phone given to him by 18 rang at this time. Wang Yuechuan frowned, but still stopped. Hello. It seems that you are safe. Sure enough, it was 18's voice, and she seemed to have completely grasped his whereabouts. But Wang Yuechuan was not too surprised. If the scene at Lanling residence was pushed behind by 18, 18 would naturally know the news of his safe escape at the first moment. What do I need to do next? Wang Yuechuan asked quickly. Unexpectedly, 18 said at this time, In fact, when you leave, you can choose to injure a policeman, so that it will be more convenient for your future actions. Wang Yuechuan frowned. Kidnapping a police officer, seizing a gun and seizing a police car, These crimes are serious enough. Have you seen everything in the USB flash drive? 18 directly changed the topic. Yes, I have. Wang Yuechuan nodded. Very good. Now, go to the airport immediately and wait in the terminal building. Someone will arrange it for you. You need to go to a technical secondary school in Xiangjiang, and then sneak out of the country. After arriving in Xiangjiang, I will contact you. Abroad? Which country? Thailand. That mercenary group is in Thailand. Wang Yuechuan asked solemnly. You will know when you get there. Well, there is no time to lose. If you wait any longer, I am afraid the airport will be blocked. Beep beep. Wang Yuechuan subconsciously dialed back and found that it was an invalid number. He couldn't get through at all. He frowned, but he tried to find a way to go to the airport. In the distance, a black shadow on the building was staring at the intricate roads of the city below. A sharp, hoarse, and pleasant gloomy laughter sounded. Go, go. When you overcome all difficulties and complete the task with great difficulty, I will give you a surprise. Of course, you have to complete it. He. Suddenly, the sound of something being smashed woke up the driver, who was dozing off in the chair. As soon as he looked up, he saw that Lu Zixing on the bed had fallen to the floor at some point. Lu Zixing's face was pale, but he looked anxious. His hands quickly touched the ground, looking around as if he was looking for something. Hey, sir, are you okay? The driver was shocked and quickly helped Lu Zixing up. Sir, are you okay? My coin. Lu Zixing wanted to push this guy away as if he was possessed, but he found that his hands and feet were weak at this time. Coin, what coin? The driver was stunned. Even if it was a gold coin, he wouldn't be so nervous. But he suddenly remembered something that happened when he sent this guy to the ambulance. Sir, are you talking about a 1 yuan coin? The driver quickly said, Here, put it here. As he said, the driver quickly took out a bag and took out his wallet and some things he carried with him. Here, is this the coin? When I sent you to the ambulance, the nurse said that you were holding this coin tightly in your hand. It took a lot of effort to take it out. When he took out the coin, Lu Zixing grabbed it immediately. He only calmed down after holding it tightly. He slowly sat down on the bed. Under the driver's surprised gaze, Lu Zixing threw the coin up. Then, after seeing the reverse side of the coin, he suddenly sighed and closed his eyes again. He lay on the bed motionless. Sir, are you okay? The driver asked carefully. He saw this guy's strange behavior when he woke up. He was afraid that he didn't know if there was something wrong with his brain. How did I come to the hospital? Lu Zixing suddenly opened his eyes. You don't remember? The driver was stunned and immediately told what happened before. Well, sir, I will immediately tell the traffic police comrade to come over. Later, no matter what, you have to tell him that I really didn't hit you, not even once. It was you who rushed out of the road and fainted. Looking at the almost 40-year-old uncle's frightened look, Lu Zixing had to nod. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't want to implicate you. Hearing Lu Zixing's apology, the depression in the driver's heart suddenly dissipated a lot. The driver breathed a sigh of relief and sat down again. Actually, it's nothing. Everyone has bad luck. Isn't it good to understand each other? But you should be more careful next time. Don't rush out like a fool. If something happens, think about your family. They will be worried. Family? Lu Zixing shook his head. His eyes were blank, but he didn't speak. The driver then remembered the traffic police comrade's words. He secretly thought that this guy's relationship with his family might not be good. He suddenly felt embarrassed. The two people by the bed fell into silence. The driver saw that Lu Zixing was playing with the 1 yuan coin, which was nothing special. In the end, he couldn't help but ask curiously, I say, brother, is there any special meaning in going together? Lu Zixing suddenly stopped and said after a while, There is nothing. I just can't let it go. The driver was stunned and said casually, Actually, I feel that in this life there is nothing that you can't let go of. The most important thing is your own health and safety. Think about it, the body is the capital of revolution. That's true. Lu Zixing smiled slightly. If he lost his life this time, naturally, he wouldn't have the qualifications to use this coin to gamble with the boss again. Lu Zixing sighed and felt that he might be very lucky. Although he was unlucky, it wasn't to the extent that he would lose his life. It was just that the pain from his ear kept telling him that he was a patient with tetanus, and it could become serious at any time. By the way, brother, your ear? The driver asked hesitantly at this moment. Then, he realized that he might be too nosy, so he quickly waved his hand and said, "It's okay, it's okay. I'm just asking, just pretend that I didn't say anything." Lu Zixing nodded and didn't intend to talk about it. He never thought that he would spend this kind of festival in the hospital, and the person accompanying him was just a stranger. Nothing was more wonderful than this. "Dad! Dad!" Lu Zixing suddenly raised his head and looked at the source of the voice. It was a 10-year-old girl wearing a small cotton-padded jacket. Her face was bright red, but she trotted all the way into the public ward. Lu Zixing watched the little girl rush into the driver's arms, but his heart seemed to be stirred. Not only the little girl, but there was also a woman in her 30s behind the little girl. "Aya, why are you here?" The driver hugged his daughter and put his hands directly on his daughter's face, fearing that she would be cold. The woman quickly came over and looked as if she was blaming him. "I was worried about you, so I came to see you. It's so late and you're still in the hospital alone. You don't know that this little girl is crying and making a fuss. I really don't know what to do with her." "Aya, does our baby miss Daddy?" The driver ignored his wife's rebuke and directly stuck his face to his daughter's body. "I'm sorry, baby. Daddy will make you something delicious when we get home later, okay?" Gift. Christmas gift. However, the little girl seemed to have turned into a spirit. She immediately pushed the driver away. "Your beard is hurting me. I really don't know why Mommy is willing to give you a kiss." "What the?" The driver immediately covered his daughter's mouth, and then looked at his wife embarrassedly. His wife glared at him, and naturally didn't give the driver a good look. In the end, she probably saw that the driver was pitiful tonight, so she rolled her eyes and muttered unwillingly, "Are you hungry? There's nothing delicious, so I made some dumplings for you. Eat whatever you want." The little girl took the thermos flask from her mother's hand, and then gave it to the driver. The driver was also very hungry. He opened the lid and couldn't wait to take a bite with relish, thinking that his wife still cared about him. At this time, his daughter suddenly asked curiously, "Uncle, why are you crying?" The family of 3 looked at Lu Zixing at the same time. The driver just remembered that there was another person beside him, and the driver's wife panicked, not knowing what to do. Lu Zixing wiped his eyes at this time, but showed a smile and said softly, "Your family has a good relationship." The driver was stunned and didn't know what to say. He could only say, "That, brother, do you want to eat some too? I see that you are hungry too." Yes, 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 I made a lot." The driver's wife quickly snatched the thermos flask from the driver's hand and put a lid on it, and gave it to Lu Zixing. "Try it, fresh mushroom meat. I just chopped it last night. It's fresh." "Thank you." Lu Zixing nodded and took it with both hands. But he couldn't help but cry. He bit down, chewed, and tasted all kinds of flavors. Later, the comrade called the traffic police came, and Lu Zixing personally wrote a letter of guarantee in front of the driver, which made the driver's family of 3 feel relieved. After a long night, the family of 3 finally returned home. The traffic police came and left quickly, and just let Lu Zixing rest in the hospital. When the driver left, he didn't take the thermos flask with him. There were still a lot of dumplings left inside, and he said that if Lu Zixing was hungry, he would have something to eat. As for the flask, it didn't matter if he didn't use it. Lu Zixing didn't know the name of the driver. He didn't specifically ask, and the other party didn't take the initiative to talk about it. Perhaps this was a chance meeting, and they would never see each other again. Lu Zixing carefully ate all the dumplings in the thermos flask, and then slowly closed his eyes, as if he was savoring the taste in his mouth. When he opened his eyes again, there was suddenly vigor in his eyes. He took out the coin, but he didn't throw it out. Instead, he waited silently. Soon after, Lu Zixing looked at the position by the window and saw a person standing in front of the window. "Boss." "Customer, I heard your call." Boss Luo smiled at Lu Zixing at this time. "Are you going to continue the bet between us?" Lu Zixing suddenly said, "Have you eaten yet?" "Yes, thank you for your concern." Luoqiu responded politely. "I have eaten too." Lu Zixing lowered his head and glanced at the thermos flask. "I had a meal, the most ordinary home-cooked meal." "Really?" Boss Luo nodded, walked to the bed, and whispered, "It must taste good." Lu Zixing smiled and said, "Actually, the taste is really not good. The instant noodles I ate when I stayed in the hotel a few days ago tasted better than this." It was like a chat between old friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. Lu Zixing didn't have the nervousness and fear when he saw Luoqiu from beginning to end. Boss Luo suddenly sat down and looked at the coin in Lu Zixing's hand. "Don't you want to gamble?" Lu Zixing sighed and said, "Why do you want to gamble when you know you will lose?" Luoqiu nodded and asked again, "Don't you want to gamble?" Lu Zixing shook his head. "If I don't gamble, how can there be a future?" "So?" Lu Zixing looked at the mysterious boss. His eyes were full of strange brilliance. "I know that I will lose no matter what I gamble now, so I won't gamble again. But I will wait until the opportunity that belongs to me comes back again. After that, I will gamble with you again. The customer's qualification to gamble fairly with me will always exist before you die." Luoqiu nodded. "I will gamble with you." Lu Zixing took a deep breath. "But when I gamble with you again in the future, I won't gamble with you on the kinship that I sold. I know that I may not win that way. I can't afford to lose. So I will gamble with you on a chance. I will gamble on a chance that I can recreate the kinship that belongs to my family. You are just giving me a chance. In this way, the price of my bet should be lower. I have more chances to win." "Indeed." Luoqiu smiled. "If it's just an opportunity, the stake required is not too high. However, I have to remind you that opportunities can also fail." Lu Zixing said indifferently, "But in this way, I can maximize my life. Without my life, I have nothing. However, my life is still there. I just have to start all over again. I hope you can win against me, dear customer." The boss disappeared into the night. Lu Zixing looked at the night outside the window and suddenly smiled. He lay on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. Chapter 756. According to the original plan, they were supposed to have a meal after watching the movie, but this trip was cancelled in the end. Because Emo Xiaofei was distressed about the class leader's current state. According to Zixing, the class leader needed to rest for a few days to recover her spirit. After separating from Zhuifeng, Emo Xiaofei and the class leader did not discuss the movie anymore. The class leader was just an ordinary person. She was in a daze during the whole process. Naturally, she had nothing to say. As for Emo Xiaofei, those extraordinary experiences were just frightening when they were told. He didn't have the idea of showing off his ability. He just wanted to be the Emo Xiaofei they knew in front of his family and friends. On the bus, Emo Xiaofei smelled a faint fragrance. The class leader fell asleep not long after getting on the bus. Her little head rested on his shoulder. Perhaps it was just a subconscious behavior? But Emo Xiaofei didn't move at all. He was afraid that the class leader would wake up. At this time, he suddenly wanted to stop or slow down the bus a little. He was like a knight silently guarding a sleeping princess. The bus drove through the bustling street and gradually came to the neighborhood of the residential area. It stopped for a while and finally arrived at the station. It was just that the class leader fell asleep and didn't wake up when the bus stopped. Emo Xiaofei knew that she was too mentally exhausted, so he was even more reluctant to wake her up. Under the strange gaze of the people on the bus, he helped the class leader out of the bus. She really can sleep. Emo Xiaofei smiled. After getting off the bus, he carried her forward. There was still a short distance to her home. The road was really not long. They arrived in a short while. Emo Xiaofei put the class leader down. Seeing that she still had her eyes closed and her breathing was steady, he had the idea of kissing her. The moment this idea came into his mind, Emo Xiaofei lowered his head slightly. He wanted to kiss her lips, but at the moment when he was about to touch her, he saw the class leader's eyelashes trembling slightly. Emo Xiaofei took a deep breath and quickly straightened his body. He secretly thought that taking advantage of others' difficulties was not a gentleman. But, if he didn't find out that she was about to wake up, would he kiss her? Well, the class leader responded and opened her eyes. She was surprised to find that she was in her own building. Oh, I'm home? How did I come back? Guess. Emo Xiaofei smiled, sleeping like a pig. You're the pig head. The class leader snorted. Emo Xiaofei laughed, looking up at the upstairs. He knew the floor where she lived, and from here he could see her window. However, there was no light in the room. Emo Xiaofei said softly, "We're here." Yes. The class leader nodded gently and suddenly said, "I don't feel like I did anything today, why am I so tired?" She suddenly looked at Emo Xiaofei's appearance with disgust and muttered, "What you saw was the back. Shouldn't this kind of vision be the guy standing behind the emperor?" Emo Xiaofei was also stunned at the same time. He thought to himself that his teacher, who looked reliable but was actually not that reliable, seemed to have some sense in his words. He then frowned. Is he a courtier or a bodyguard or something like that? Well, it may also be a eunuch. Long Shirua said seriously. My previous life may be a eunuch? Emo Xiaofei suddenly recalled the scene of him wearing the eunuch's uniform, pinching his fingers and speaking like a duck, and being respectfully addressed as Eunuch Emo. He shuddered subconsciously. That was such a beautiful scene. Teacher, am I really a eunuch? Emo Xiaofei looked at Long Shirua and wailed. How would I know? Long Shirua shook her head. Even I can't see what your previous life is. But if you really want to know, it is not impossible. Is there any way? Emo Xiaofei asked eagerly. Why not? Long Shirua showed her erudition and hummed. If you want to know who your previous life is, there are at least several ways. For example, the Three Lives mirror, one of the top 10 artifacts in Kelowna. It can seize the fortune of heaven and earth and reflect the past and present lives. Teacher, is the plane I'm in a Xianxia plane? Emo Xiaofei wailed. Don't interrupt. Long Shirua stared at Emo Xiaofei, but the Three Lives mirror has been lost. Even I can't sense where it is hiding. So you can't go this way. The only way left is to find the successor of the plainclothes sect. Plainclothes sect? Long Shirua nodded. The plainclothes sect is a strange sect that can calculate people and heaven and earth. Because it can calculate too many things, the successor of each generation is very short-lived. But the inheritance can't be cut off. They are as tenacious as cockroaches. Speaking of the plainclothes sect, there is a very famous one. I watched TV a few years ago. Someone arranged some of this guy's life into a TV series. His name is Lai Plainclothes? Or Lai Mai E. Thanks to TVB. Emo Xiaofei praised in his heart and then hurriedly said, then the successor of this generation. The whereabouts of the successor of the plainclothes sect are unknown. It's almost impossible to find them. Long Shirua said helplessly, the plainclothes sect has a way to hide the secret of heaven. Even if the peers want to calculate their whereabouts, it's impossible. Teacher, isn't this another dead end? Emo Xiaofei looked at Long Shirua with disgust. But I know where to find the successor of the plainclothes sect. Long Shirua suddenly narrowed her eyes. Emo Xiaofei directly threw away his moral integrity. Teacher, you're the greatest person I've ever seen. Long Shirua snorted. The Punglai conference of Mount Tai is coming soon. In order to prepare for this conference, many hidden guys in Kelowna have been waiting for half a year in advance. It's impossible for the successor of the plainclothes sect to not appear in this kind of event that is held every 10 years in Kelowna. Mount Tai. Mo Xiaofei pondered. Long Shirua said indifferently, but you have to think carefully. The plainclothes sect isn't the kind of swindler who wears sunglasses and deceives you for 8 to 10 years. They have real abilities. So if you want to ask the plainclothes sect to help you, you'll have to pay a lot. Mo Xiaofei thought for a while and asked abruptly, Teacher, do you think if it's that boss? Long Shirua frowned, but said seriously, do you have anything to sell? If the plainclothes sect helps you, maybe it's just a request within your ability, or just to let you owe it a favor, but it won't be too ruthless. That was because it understood the principle of leaving some leeway for everything. But if it's that shop, it's not necessarily so. Mo Xiaofei whispered, I always feel that the boss is not so bad. Long Shirua sighed, treating everyone equally, treating the common people with absolute fairness. Don't you think it's terrible? That's no longer human. Mo Xiaofei wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he fell silent and didn't continue to discuss the boss. Long Shirua lost interest at this time. She waved her hand and said, Well, you're tired today. Go back and rest early. I'll deal with the greedy wolf clan. You'd better come to cultivate on time tomorrow. In addition, you should forget about the world fragment for the time being. It's not time for you to come into contact with it. There are some things that I don't want you to know. It's not that I look down on you or have other intentions. I just want you to focus and not think too much. Mo Xiaofei nodded and left Long Shirua's office. He quickly found Zixing. After a few words of greeting, he left under the vigilant gaze of Greedy Wolf Clan's wolf warrior. After Mo Xiaofei left, Long Shirua frowned. She also told Zixing and walked out quietly. After seeing Lu Zixing in the hospital, Luoqiu didn't go back to the central square to meet Ren Xiling and others immediately. Even if he had returned to the square at this time. There were all kinds of people here. Different people, different brilliance like an ocean. Luoqiu sat on a bench, quietly watching those people in the square. He suddenly remembered the day when he got the position of the club owner. He remembered that day. He seemed to be looking at the pedestrians on the street like this. Then, he walked on a road that he couldn't imagine before. Luoqiu lowered his head and turned his palm. A small gift box appeared in his palm. He pushed his palm up. The box rose slowly and then disappeared into the air. Following that, another small gift box appeared. Following the same pattern, it also disappeared into the air. The ant's health was getting worse and worse. This was the trauma left by 20 years of wind and rain. She was sleeping in the hospital bed. For some time, she woke up less and less. Fang Jiping knew that she didn't have much time. Now he accompanied her every day. Of course, his girlfriend often accompanied him and visited her together. But the aunt couldn't recognize people. Sometimes she was awake, sometimes she was confused. Fang Jiping didn't know whether it was good or bad. But when she talked about Hua in her sleep, she always smiled beautifully. Who didn't remember that their mother was the most beautiful person in the world? Tonight, Fang Jiping and his girlfriend didn't go somewhere to celebrate. Instead, they came to the hospital as usual. His girlfriend was getting hot water for the aunt to wipe her body. Fang Jiping was asking the doctor about her condition, because the doctor said that the aunt's body was reaching its limit, so he should be mentally prepared. No one saw that beside the aunt's pillow, a small box appeared out of nowhere and opened automatically. A little light like stardust scattered from the box and finally attached to the ant's body. When Fang Jiping left the doctor's office dejectedly and returned to the ward, he met his girlfriend who just came back with water. They looked at each other and smiled. Then, they pulled themselves together and entered the ward. The moment they entered the ward, they were both stunned. Because they both saw that the aunt had woken up and was now sitting on the bed, looking at them. Her eyes were no longer cloudy. "Mom!" Fong Jipping knew that she was awake now and recognized him. Zhuge held his girlfriend's hand happily, watching a TV series at home. She said that she didn't like to see people outside at this time. It was better to stay at home quietly. Zhuge said yes, he would be wherever she wanted him to be. This wasn't an outstanding sweet talk, but it made his girlfriend smile sweetly. Suddenly, his phone received a message. "Oh, it's so late. Is it a promotion message?" "I don't know. Let me see." Zhuge stood up unwillingly, picking up the phone from the table. He glanced at it quickly and then blinked. "Damn, it can't be. What's wrong? Why are you making a fuss?" "Honey, I seem to have won the lottery. 1-week tour in Europe. 2 people's share." "Ah." Ms. Wang lay down early and was ready to sleep. The doctor said that she needed more rest because she was pregnant. Now that her belly was big, it was inconvenient for her to move. Besides, she was divorced and single. Although it was Christmas Eve, she naturally didn't want to go anywhere to play. She touched her belly, showing motherly love. She didn't feel lonely, but fell asleep slowly. She seemed to have a dream that she returned to her childhood. Chapter 757. High up in the sky, the helicopter's propeller made a rumbling sound as it drove into a mountainous area. "Sir Robert, we're about to arrive at the base that was attacked. The helicopter is about to land, please sit tight." In the cabin in front, a man in a white uniform turned around and said, "No need, open the cabin door here." Robert, who had the title of Wolf King, waved his hand and ordered his men to open the side door of the cabin. "I smell the scent of prey." The 2 pilots looked at each other. They knew that the gods' generals from Paradise Island were extremely powerful. They did not dare to hesitate and immediately opened the cabin door. Luo Bo directly stepped out of the air, his body straight as a ramrod as he descended from the sky. At the moment of landing, Luo Bo's legs were slightly bent, and he was able to withstand the terrifying acceleration. The 2 mech pilots were speechless. At this time, Lobo twisted his neck, and his bones made a cracking sound. Then, he quickly walked towards a certain direction in the forest. In front of him, he could clearly feel a strong will. Oh? He didn't leave after destroying the base. Is he waiting for me on purpose? Robert smiled. The attraction between the strong allowed Luo Bo to clearly lock on to the position of the other without any sophisticated equipment. Robert entered the forest and the pilots were unable to track the heavenly generals. They could only continue to drive the helicopter forward. Here, only the base had a landing pad for the helicopter to land safely. However, when the helicopter flew over the mountain and arrived at the base, the 2 pilots were shocked. The base was like a school built in the forest. At this moment, there were only dilapidated buildings. When they finally landed, they hurriedly walked out of the helicopter. When they looked around, they saw rows of cold corpses. It was like hell. It made them break out in cold sweat. What kind of massacre happened here? Just as he was secretly shocked, a series of loud noises suddenly came from the mountains, as if the mountains were pouring down. It was a natural disaster. It seemed that this place was called the Fairy Trail Forest by the people who built the base in the mountains. Of course, there was no so-called fairy trail here. It was just that the scenery was beautiful like a fairyland. There was a small waterfall in the Immortal Trail Forest. The water flowed down and hit the rocks. White mist drifted away like an illusory cloud. At this time, beside the flowing stream, a young girl wearing a black dress was washing her long hair. She was almost as pale as snow, as if she was sick. She was Suzy Juan, who had crossed half of the world's territory to come here. Except for the areas near the Mediterranean Sea, the winters in the northern hemisphere were almost the same. In the Immortal Tracking Forest, the wide leaves of the trees began to fall, covering the ground. The bone armor on this pair of arms was ferocious, and the elbows were terrifyingly sharp bone blades. It looked like they were born to kill. Su Zijuan smelled a lot of souls and blood from this guy. She didn't know how many people this guy had killed to be able to accumulate such a terrifying murderous aura. But even if this murderous aura was twice as strong, it couldn't shake her mind. At this time, Su Zijuan directly punched out. A dark red demon power erupted, and a terrifying wave of air suddenly pressed down on Wolf King Lobo. Seeing this, Wolf King Lobo's expression suddenly turned serious. This dark red demon power seemed endless, and each wave was more pressuring than the last. At this moment, facing this boundless demon power, he even felt like he was facing a flood. Just the right time to temper my battle intent. Wolf King Lobo laughed wildly. At the same time, he also punched out. Under the pressure of Su Zijuan's dark red demon power, he forcibly opened up an area that belonged to him. The fist wrapped in bone armor fiercely collided with Su Zijuan's small white fist. A pure collision of strength against strength. The loud sound of the mountain stream came from this. That terrifying sound wave reverberated in the mountains, as if it was going to shake the mountains. The moment the two collided, two powerful forces spread out, turning into a terrifying shockwave, blowing the surrounding trees in pain. The result of this exchange of fists was not an inch of ground. At this moment, the bone armor on Wolf King Lobo's fist suddenly shattered. It actually couldn't block Su Zijuan's punch. At this moment, he calmly retreated and shook his arm, shaking off the shattered bone armor. Huh? Is this what you mean by, I don't know how big the world is? Su Zijuan's gaze turned solemn. Lobo glanced at the shattered bone armor on the ground and lightly clenched his fist. Once again, the bone armor grew out of the flesh and blood, looking exactly the same as before it shattered. Small trick. Su Zijuan snorted coldly and punched again. Wolf King Lobo didn't dodge this time and faced it head-on. The fist wrapped in bone armor once again collided with Su Zijuan's pink but not weak fist. Boom! This time, Wolf King Lobo's body directly retreated, and the bone armor on his arm shattered again. But Su Zijuan frowned at this time. Her punch was at least 30% stronger than the first one, but it obviously didn't achieve the expected effect. The drought demon physique was originally famous for the strength of the physical body, but this guy, the strength of his physical body seemed to be extraordinary. Seeing this guy grow his bone armor again, Su Zijuan didn't plan to give him a chance to breathe this time. But the moment she moved, she felt a cold and strange force like a poisonous snake, starting from her arm and spreading all the way up. This force didn't seem like demon power. Su Zijuan's expression changed slightly. Lobo smiled coldly at this time. Interesting? This isn't demon power, but true power cultivated from ancient martial arts. A demonic body, cultivating the true power of a human? Su Zijuan was stunned and frowned. Other than demon power in your body, the other force is true power. After all, the demon race was different from humans. How did this guy cultivate true power? Su Zijuan couldn't figure it out. Wolf King Lobo smiled but didn't say anything. Su Zijuan snorted, and the demonic power in his body erupted, instantly expelling the foreign energy from his body. As a member of the demonic race, instead of polishing your own demonic power, you are cultivating the true power of a human. You are simply putting the cart before the horse. No matter what it is, as long as it can make me stronger, I don't care. Wolf King Lobo let out a sinister laugh. Princess of the Xianyuan royal family, don't underestimate any kind of power. Because no matter what it is, as long as it reaches the peak, it can explode with unimaginable potential. Saying that, Wolf King Lobo's flesh and blood started to explode, and now it wasn't just his arms. His entire body was covered with a pale white bone armor. The moment the bone armor was completely covered, Lobo's body turned into a cannonball, and actually took the initiative to attack for the first time. Su Zijuan instinctively blocked, but suddenly felt the strength from Lobo's fist increase by several times, the strange force born from demon power and strange true power, once again burrowing into her body, and she actually felt a trace of pain. But this was far more than that. At this moment, a sharp bone spike suddenly shot out from the bone armor on Luobo's chest. The bone spike shot out too quickly, and actually pierced through Su Zijuan's shoulder in a moment. My bone marrow is fused with a special alloy. When it congeals outside the body, its hardness can surpass the hardest diamond. Lobo laughed sinisterly, and continued to attack crazily. The bone armor on his body would constantly shoot out terrifying bone spikes, and was impossible to defend against. Su Zijuan was not paying attention, and her arm was once again pierced by the bone spike. But at the same time, she had to admit that this rascal relied on this ability, and could be considered as a great demon. Although the opponent's demon power was not exposed, but after fusing with true power, the strange force was extremely hard to deal with. Su Zijuan sighed, and from the initial surprise, she calmed down, looked at Lobo, and said seriously, "I was careless. But if it's only this, compared to the one who used the spear, you are not much stronger." As she spoke, Su Zijuan's shoulder and arm that were pierced, the wounds quickly healed, and the speed was even faster than Lobo's bone armor's regeneration by several times. "Looks like the battle between us is a war of attrition." Lobo laughed wildly. If it was only a competition of physical strength, he knew that he would not lose to anyone. "Is that so?" Su Zijuan's pupils instantly turned into fragments of gold. The dark red demonic power erupted once again, but this time, it was several times stronger than before. Two terrifying streams of demonic power intertwined and circled around her before suddenly shooting up into the sky. First layer of seal, release. The place where she stood, the ground instantly sank. With one step, Su Zijuan's body suddenly grew, from the original 14 or 15 years old appearance, to the appearance of 17 or 18 years old. I said, the one who used the spear took advantage of my bad state at that time, and it was a sneak attack, which made me suffer a small loss. If you think that I am easy to deal with, that voice directly sounded in Lobo's ear, making his breath suddenly stop. Then you have to bear the consequences. The voice fell. Su Zijuan's figure suddenly disappeared, and Lobo was unable to lock onto the opponent's movement speed. At the same time, he only felt a huge force hit his back. Bang bang bang. Lobo's body was like a sandbag, bearing the terrifying, many heavy blows from different directions. From the ground to the sky, he was like a drifting catkin, constantly swaying in the wind. Bang! Suddenly, when Lobo's body was thrown into the air, another huge force came from above. Lobo's body directly hit the ground. Only to hear a huge roar in the forest, Lobo's body completely sank into the ground. At this moment, the bone armor on his body was completely shattered, and he spat out a mouthful of pus and blood. Su Zijuan's figure was floating in the air, looking down. After drinking the blood of Cain from that profiteer, her current state was very good, her old injuries were healed, and she was not in Kelowna, so naturally she could release her power without restraint. Lobo coughed out another mouthful of blood, but he gritted his teeth and climbed up from the ground. His clothes were already shattered by the bombardment, and now he directly tore them, revealing a terrible scar on his chest. That was the position of his heart. But Su Zijuan frowned, because not only the wound on Lobo's heart, she also saw a huge tattoo on Lobo's chest. This tattoo was in the shape of a wolf's head, but this wolf's head was covered with a lot of scars, which seemed to be intentional. But Su Zijuan recognized the origin of this wolf head tattoo. "You are Greedy Wolf Clan? I have nothing to do with them." Lobo roared to the sky, "I am me. Xianyuan Princess, eat my strongest attack." Sentence. Lobo suddenly waved his hand, and a strange blue short blade directly rushed out of his body, suddenly flying towards Su Zijuan's neck, directly going for her throat. Su Zijuan suddenly felt a sense of danger. She felt that if she was touched by this short blade, it would directly cut off her head. A head attack. Along with the strange flying trajectory of the short blade, there were bursts of distortions in the space, and it was impossible to directly lock onto the short blade's trajectory. Su Zijuan was shocked and angry at this time, but she directly opened her mouth and spat out a terrifying flame. The drought demon came out, thousands of li of land were red, burning everything. The flame submerged the short blade, and at the same time, it also submerged Lobo, burying everything in the sea of fire. The fire blocked his line of sight. When Robber's body was engulfed by the flames, a strange twisting whirlpool appeared behind him. An arm quickly stretched out from the whirlpool, grabbed Robber's shoulder, and pulled him into the whirlpool, directly pulling him into the whirlpool. Whoosh! Below, the area of hundreds of meters had been turned into scorched earth. Su Zijuan slowly descended, stepping on the scorching earth. Her body began to shrink a little, and not long after, she returned to her original appearance of a young girl. But she just slightly frowned, her palm brushed across her neck, and felt some blood. There was a wound here, she didn't know when it appeared. Su Zijuan thought of the guy who used the spear. That strange spear was also very difficult to deal with. She couldn't help but secretly think that if the thugs of the Michael Club had such strange weapons in their hands, they would be very powerful. This guy and the one with the spear should be the high-level thugs of the club. I don't know if there are more powerful people above them. Su Zijuan pondered for a moment. At this time, a faint ball of light slowly emerged above her head. Su Zijuan looked up and saw that the ball of light dispersed, and a beautifully packaged box slowly fell at this time. Su Zijuan was stunned, and felt a faint aura from this box. Boss. The flames of war had never stopped in this country, even if it was Christmas Day. Because this country had its own religious beliefs, the extremists would naturally do extreme things. In a small village in this country, many villagers gathered in the village when it was close to night. They happily took out a large amount of food to celebrate, but not to celebrate Christmas Eve, but to celebrate the joy of being liberated from some horrible guys. They once thought that they would be sent to the battlefield, and their children would be brainwashed, and then become horrible killing machines. However, a woman wearing a black leather jacket suddenly appeared in front of them. This woman had single-handedly saved them from the hands of those demon-like fanatics. They wanted to know the woman's name, and they wanted to pray for her every day in the future, hoping that the God they believed in could bless her. But she just told them that she didn't have a name, but they could call her Avenger. Avenger, a very terrible name. But it was she who saved them from those demons. So, even if she was an Avenger, they were more willing to call her Avenging Angel? Jessica looked at the villagers who were singing and dancing in the bonfire, and laughed at herself. How could an Avenger become an angel? This place wasn't as prosperous as a big city, and the living conditions were even tough. They were worried about the coming of war every day, but now their faces were filled with happy smiles. Jessica was slightly touched, lowering her head and saying nothing. She suddenly took out a necklace from her collar, opening the pendant on the necklace. There was a photo inside. Yi Yen. Sister. At this time, a little girl ran in front of her with a small box in her hand. The packaging was very nice. What's the matter? Jessica frowned and asked. Sister, this is for you. The little girl smiled innocently. I just picked it up from the side. Jessica touched the girl's head, taking the gift casually. Of course, people here didn't celebrate Christmas, but she used to celebrate it. Thank you. Jessica thanked her, and then pointed to the crowd afar. Go back there, that's where you belong. The little girl nodded as if she understood. She kissed Jessica's face and then left happily. Jessica smiled. She thought to herself, tomorrow I'll leave this place. Serenity didn't belong to her for the time being. While thinking, she opened the box from the girl, the only gift she received this Christmas. To Jessica's surprise, there was a small hard disk in the box. Jessica was stunned, frowning, and then walked towards her tent outside the village. Jessica took out the notebook from the bag, speaking of which, these things were found when she destroyed the Devil's Denver. She inserted the hard disk, opening the only folder in the hard disk, and saw a video file. Could this be some kind of video of hostages being held hostage and then beheaded? Jessica thought subconsciously and opened the file. When the video file was opened, Jessica was stunned. She didn't see anything scary. What she saw was a very old picture. The recording equipment wasn't good, so the picture quality was a bit blurry, and the color was pale yellow. The video was in an auditorium. There were many young people here, both men and women. It was full of noise, and they were celebrating something, full of youthfulness. At this moment, a handsome man walked slowly to the stage of the auditorium, and there were many cheers coming from all directions. The man held a saxophone, showing a charming smile to the audience, and then he played the saxophone slowly on the stage. How could the young Yi Yen? Jessica covered her mouth subconsciously. She didn't think about how the hard disk came about, but just stared at the figure who was playing alone in the old times. Chapter 758. Su Zijuan did not leave the forest immediately. She did not care about the destruction of this place. There were two reasons for her to stay. First, she was searching for traces of Luobo. Although the drought demon fire she spat out was strong, with the strength of Luobo's body and those strange bone armor, even if he was burned to death, there should be at least some traces left behind. But she did not find anything. But Luobo's aura had indeed disappeared, at least, he had disappeared in this area. And then there was this gift that was delivered directly to her hand. Looking at the present in her hands, Su Zijuan fell into deep thought. Perhaps she should open it and see what the boss was up to. But when Su Zijuan wanted to open the box, her vision suddenly became blurry, and she even felt like she could not stand properly. What's going on? Su Zijuan's body fell to the ground, and she spat out a mouthful of black blood. It's poison. That strange blue dagger was smeared with a huge amount of poison. At this moment, Su Zijuan felt a terrifying poison in her body, and it was madly destroying her body. The drought demon body was incomparably strong, and it was impervious to all poisons. She really could not think of what kind of poison could cause her body to be damaged to such an extent in an instant. Damn it, I thought it was someone who was obsessed with strength, but I did not expect him to use poison. Su Zijuan gritted her teeth, and the blood in her body surged out, suppressing the raging poison. She felt that she could completely expel this poison, but it would take some time. And she could not be disturbed. Su Zijuan didn't have time to open the gift box in her hand. She quickly left the forest. It was not that she had not been careless in her life, but this time she was suppressed by someone who was not as strong as her, so she was naturally unhappy. But at the same time, this gave her a signal. In this world, there was a poison that could harm the drought demon body, and it was outside of Kelowna. Not long after, Su Zijuan was already far away from the forest. But she felt very bad, as if she was escaping. Su Zijuan could not help but remember the last time she was injured, and finally had to run back to the Long Shirua hospital with a gloomy face. Although later she met the little butterfly in the hospital, and the days changed a little, she still could not forget the humiliation of being injured. Thinking about the injury half a year ago, Su Zijuan's eyes shot out a substantial killing intent. Those two people who claimed to be Nirvana-level experts had inexplicably appeared, saying that she had the qualifications to join them, but she had to complete a test. They were extremely arrogant. Since she was young, the only people who could make her angry were Kelowna, Shinryu, and Long Shirua. At that time, Su Zijuan, who was relaxing, had an inexplicable anger in her heart, so she grabbed the two Nirvana-level experts and fought them. But she did not expect that these two people who claimed to be Nirvana-level experts were shockingly strong. In the end, they forced Su Zijuan to risk her life and directly released the third seal in her body, injuring the two people, and thus she was able to escape. Su Zijuan was an extremely arrogant person, so she naturally wanted to get back her intestines after suffering a loss from these people who claimed to be nirvana-level experts. Otherwise, if that damned old woman Long Shiruo found out, she was afraid that she would be laughed at for hundreds of years. But regarding the information of nirvana-level experts, Su Zijuan did not obtain any information. She only knew the name of one of the two nirvana-level experts who had invited her. A coquettish woman named Li Kester. Su Zijuan rushed all the way, not caring about where she was going. She did not look at the map, but when she destroyed the club's base in the Immortal Trail Forest, she found information about another base. This time, she planned to look for a safe place to expel the poison from her body while heading toward the other base. But she did not know that the direction in front of her was a place where war and chaos interweave. The Middle East. Wolf King Lobo felt as if his body was falling apart, and then he was casually thrown to the ground. Recalling the flames that the Xianyuan royal princess had spat out, Lobo's heart still palpitated. He wondered if he would be able to resist if he were to face her head-on. But compared to that hypothesis, Lobo was more concerned about his current environment. Clearly, he had been saved. That twisting vortex. Lobo got up from the ground. He was not surrounded by a forest, but a very luxurious modern apartment. In an instant, space had split open, allowing him to come to this place from the Immortal Trail Forest. What appeared in front of Lobo was a very ordinary-looking old man with disheveled hair. Looking at his appearance, he was at least 80 years old. Lobo could not even feel the aura of an expert from this old man, but it was clear that this old man had saved him from the flames of the Xianyuan royal princess. "Who are you? Why did you save me?" Lobo frowned and at the same time checked his body's condition. At this time, this white-haired old man walked in front of Lobo with a smile, put on a monocle, and kept looking at Lobo's body. That kind of look, it was as if he was appraising some kind of gem. This made Lobo extremely uncomfortable. He wanted to retreat, but suddenly found that his body could not move. At this moment, his body was actually completely imprisoned by an invisible thing. "Young man, don't be afraid, I'm just curious to look at your body." The old man nodded as he watched. "Young man, you've really surprised me. Your body has undergone at least 70 large-scale transformations, and the small parts have undergone more than 50 transformations. It's hard to imagine how strong your willpower is to be able to endure such inhumane torture." Lobo's gaze froze, then he was shocked. He didn't know the origin of this old man, but if this old man could see the secret of his body just by looking at him like this, it was too terrifying. Who are you?" The old man finished looking at him at this time and waved his hand. Lobo suddenly felt his body relax, and he had regained his freedom. At this time, the old man slowly said, "My name is Einstein, I'm a transcender." "Einstein?" Lobo frowned. He felt that he had heard this name somewhere, but he couldn't remember it for a while. "Transcender." "Yes, transcender." The old man named Einstein smiled at this time and said, "In my opinion, transcenders are a group of guys who are not bound by any restrictions in the gap between the two different rules of science and transcender. I saved you not because of anything else, but because you were chosen to become one of us. So, Wolf King Lobo, are you interested in joining us?" "Join you?" Lobo narrowed his eyes. He didn't care what force he joined as long as it could give him great power. It was the same when he became the Divine General of the Michael Club. As long as the other party could give him something that moved him. "Yes, join us." Einstein nodded. "According to us, we need to follow more potential companions. I don't know the reason why you were chosen, but I was just appointed to be your examiner. When you complete the assessment, I will be your guide." "What's in it for me to join you?" Lobo was quite direct. "There are many benefits." Einstein thought for a while and said, "For example, I can give you enough power to subvert the Kelowna Greedy Wolf clan." Don't be so surprised." Einstein said indifferently, "Since I have chosen you, I naturally know everything about you. We exist in the gap between science and transcender. Even the will of the world can hardly monitor us. It is not difficult to inquire about some information. Lobo frowned and suddenly asked, "How many transcenders are there?" "You can only know this after you complete the assessment and officially become one of us." Lobo stared at the other party. Although this old man looked ordinary, he could stop all of Lobo's actions with a wave of his hand. The mysterious power made Lobo more afraid than the princess of the Xianyuan royal family. "Behind me is the Michael Club," Rob said abruptly. He deliberately mentioned the Michael Club because he wanted to see the old man's reaction. After all, compared to the detached ones, Luo Bo at least knew the ins and outs of the Michael Club. It was even difficult for him to find any organization outside of China that could compare to a behemoth like the Michael Club. "Of course, we know that you are a member of the club, and you are one of the 12 divine generals." Einstein smiled. "But this is no obstacle for us, because joining us does not mean that you will leave the club. Although the philosophy of this club is somewhat conflicting with ours, the general direction is actually similar." "Well, what do you think?" Lobo sneered. "You let me join you, but you didn't let me see any benefits. You just said a few words. Isn't this too simple?" Einstein smiled and said, "We were able to rescue you in that situation without anyone noticing. Isn't this enough to prove anything?" Lobo was silent, but he looked at Einstein and suddenly said, "I want your power. Can I?" Einstein did not refuse. Instead, he said with a warm smile, "The essence of my ability comes from science. It has reached the stage of the first truth. It's not impossible for you to learn, but you need to learn from the initial foundation. Among the transcendents, there are relatively few groups like me. I am also very happy to see a companion who can discuss the truth with me in the future. I can mix the demon power and the true power of humans. There is nothing in this world that I can't learn." Lobo sneered. Einstein waved his hand and a small crack suddenly appeared on Lobo's head. In the crack, a large number of brick-like thick books fell down. In the blink of an eye, they piled up into a small mountain. Lobo frowned, thinking that this was some secret book. He picked up a book and read it, but he frowned again and again. He looked at the title of the book again. It was written Euclidean Geometry. Lobo finally closed the book. He secretly thought that he would find time to read all these things in the future. Even if he didn't understand them, he would memorize them all first. "Well, I can promise to join you, but you can't restrict my freedom. There are no benefits for free, and the obligation is not for nothing." Einstein chuckled. "Young man, you have to be more mature. Moreover, before you join, you need to pass an assessment." "What is the assessment?" Einstein looked at Lobo at this time and showed a pleasant smile. "I have thought about your assessment content. Do you want to be my experimental subject? I have been researching the topic of quantization recently, and I lack a physical experimenter." "Experimental subject? Research?" Lobo frowned. He got the current power because the club invested a lot of resources in him and carried out a terrifying transformation. He asked himself, he had survived the pain that was more terrible than the torture in the 18th level of hell. What kind of experiment in this world could be difficult for him? "Okay. I promise you." Einstein clapped his hands happily at this time. "That's great. Mr. Lobo, I have asked the servant to prepare dinner. How about we eat turkey tonight? I forgot that you still have injuries on your body. You should eat something lighter. Well, how about this? I will leave for a while and find a friend. He has a lot of medicine to treat injuries on hand." This messy old man was neurotic. He directly waved his hand and tore a crack. He entered the darkness that made Lobo tremble. Lobo began to look at the apartment. This apartment had at least 30 floors. Lobo didn't know how many family members were upstairs. He opened the curtains, looked at the city in front of him, and found that it was covered with snow. But he saw the position of the sun. So he looked at the east at the same time and said softly, "Precious, somewhere in Russia there were coal mines here. The living conditions of the miners living here had improved a lot recently. The reason was that the boss behind this place had died for some reason. Naturally, the group with the boss as the core had also collapsed, and the exploitation had been reduced a lot. Although the identity of being exploited still didn't change under the influence of capital, since life could be better, then it was better. Oleg took his son, Antonio, back to the place where he was born and raised. But he didn't tell those who used to know him. The father and son built a wooden house in the mountains of the city far away from the village. Oleg went up the mountain to hunt every day, and Antonio would follow his father to learn how to hunt. The child said that he wanted to exercise a strong body and become a strong man who surpassed his father in the future. But Antonio had a wish that he had never said, that was, he hoped that when he really grew up, he could become a great boxer. Today's harvest was good. Oleg carried a wild boar he had hunted and was very happy to deal with it. Antonio, on the other hand, was preparing other ingredients in the house. Although the family lost its hostess early, the relationship between the father and son was getting better and better. Antonio suddenly heard some strange noises coming from upstairs. Out of curiosity, he ran upstairs. In his room, when he opened the door, Antonio found that he didn't know when a gift was on the bed. Antonio blinked and couldn't wait to open the gift. God! It turned out to be a pair of brand new boxing gloves. Was it a gift from his father? Antonio put on the boxing gloves in surprise. He found that the boxing gloves were too big for him to wear at this time, but he still couldn't hide the excitement in his heart. He quickly opened the window and shouted to his father, who was processing the wild boar outside the house, "Dad! I love you! Thank you for your gift!" Oleg was stunned. He didn't hear what his son said clearly because he was boning the bones. He looked back in confusion, but saw Antonio's small head retracted into the room and closed the window. This child is so mysterious. Oleg smiled and looked up at the sky. Maybe his wife could see it in heaven? After long Shirua left the hospital quietly, she came to the cinema mentioned by Zixing and secretly investigated. For this reason, she even used the power of the bead once to temporarily restore some of the power of Shinryu. But after the effect passed, she still didn't gain anything. She was a little discouraged and left. But at this time, a gift box fell in front of Long Shirua. Kelowna's little Shinryu frowned and hesitated before opening the gift box directly. No one had told her who had sent it, but her intuition told her who had sent it. But Kelowna's little Shinryu glanced at the contents of the box and suddenly became angry. He directly threw the box on the ground and left angrily. Who will eat this kind of thing? After Kelowna's little Shinryu left, there was only a small package left, a very ordinary red date and walnut snack. But it was obviously stepped on several times. Even if someone saw it, they wouldn't be willing to take it away. In a karst cave under the riverbed, a gift box slowly fell. The gift box was automatically opened, and there was a small bottle of osmanthus honey inside. At the same time, some strange sounds suddenly sounded in this quiet cave. Something seemed to be gushing out from the soil. Finally, it began to gush out, but it was a big white cocoon. But in an instant, the big cocoon suddenly broke open. A naked body struggled out of the big cocoon and then stretched. "It's so comfortable," she called out comfortably, then her nose twitched. She smelled something sweet, and her eyes followed the direction of the smell. "Hey, honey!" She picked up the osmanthus honey in the box and blinked. Did Sister Zijuan leave it for me? But she didn't think too much about it because she was hungry now. Qian Xiu and 1,000 delicate feathers were teaming up to complete a super difficult mission. Finally, when they overcame all difficulties to conquer this dungeon instance mission and came to a room, they saw an old man with a sage-like demeanor. "I'm the main god, Tai Yin. Congratulations on successfully coming to my secret." This is the only reward for this Christmas special dungeon instance. The sage-like old man slowly blew a breath, and a gift box was sent to Qian Xiu's hand. As soon as the gift was delivered, the guy named the main god, Tai Yin, disappeared. The surroundings were restored to its original state again. The boss corpse was still lying on the ground. What is this? Thousand Delicate Feathers asked curiously. After Qian Xiu opened the box and looked at it, his expression became weird. This is a synthetic blueprint. Is it a weapon? It's useless? Thousand Delicate Feathers didn't care much. No. Qian Xiu looked at Thousand Delicate Feathers, took a deep breath, and said, "It can be synthesized as a growth-type humanoid pet. Using my data and yours to make the adjustment. Wow!" Thousand Delicate Feathers jumped up in joy. She looked at the introduction of this blueprint.